it's like net wonderful. You know, there's things we're going to lose along the way. Some kinds of jobs, some kind of parts of our way of life, some parts of the way we live are going to change or go away. And no matter how tremendous the upside is there, and I believe it will be tremendously good. You know, there's a lot of stuff we got to navigate through to make sure. That's a complicated thing for anyone to wrap their heads around, and there's, you know, deep and super understandable emotions around that.
That's a very honest answer. That it's not all going to be good, but it seems inevitable at this point.
It's yeah, I mean, it's definitely inevitable. My view of the world, you know, when you're like a kid in school, you learn about this technological revolution and then that one and then that one. And my view of the world now, sort of looking backwards and forwards, is that this is like one long technological revolution. And we had, sure, like first we had to figure out agriculture so that we had the resources and time to figure out how to build machines. Then we got the Industrial Revolution, and that made us learn about a lot of stuff, a lot of other scientific discovery too, let us do the Computer Revolution, and that's now letting us, as we scale up to these massive systems, do the AI revolution. But it really is just one long story of humans discovering science and technology and co-evolving with it. And I think it's the most exciting story of all time. I think it's how we get to this world of abundance. And although we do have these things to navigate, and there will be these downsides, if you think about what it means for the world and for people's quality of lives, if we can get to a world where the cost of intelligence and the abundance that comes with that, the cost dramatically falls, the abundance goes way up. I think we'll do the same thing with energy. And I think those are the two sort of key inputs to everything else we want. So if we can have abundant and cheap energy and intelligence, that will transform people's lives largely for the better. And I think it's going to, in the same way that if we could go back now 500 years and look at someone's life, we'd say, well, there's some great things, but they didn't have this, they didn't have that. Can you believe they didn't have modern medicine? That's what people are going to look back at us like, but in 50 years.
When you think about the people that currently rely on jobs that AI will replace, when you think about whether it's truck drivers or automation workers, people that are working in factory assembly lines, what, if anything, what strategies can be put to mitigate the negative downsides of those jobs being eliminated by AI?
So I'll talk about some general thoughts, but I find making very specific prediction difficult because the way the technology goes has been so different than even my own intuitions, or certainly my own intuitions.
Maybe we should stop there and back up a little. What were your initial thoughts?
If you had asked me 10 years ago, I would have said, first, AI is going to come for blue-collar labor, basically. It's going to drive trucks and do factory work, and, you know, it'll handle heavy machinery. Then maybe after that, it'll do like some kinds of cognitive labor, kind of, you know, but not, it won't be off doing what I think of personally as the really hard stuff. It won't be off proving new mathematical theorems. It won't be off, you know, discovering new science. Won't be off writing code. And then eventually, maybe, but maybe last of all, maybe never, because human creativity is this magic special thing. Last of all, it'll come from the creative jobs. That's what I would have said. Now, it looks to me like, and for a while, AI is much better at doing tasks than doing jobs. It can do these little pieces super well, but sometimes it goes off the rails. It can't keep like very long coherence. So people are instead just able to do their existing jobs way more productively. But you really still need the human there today. And then B, it's going exactly the other direction. You can do the creative work first, stuff like coding second. They can do things like other kinds of cognitive labor third, and we're the furthest away from like humanoid robots.
So back to the initial question. If we do have something that completely eliminates factory workers, completely eliminates truck drivers, delivery drivers, things along those lines, that creates this massive vacuum in our society.
So I think there's things that we're gonna do that are good to do but not sufficient. So I think at some point we will do something like a UBI or some other kind of like very long-term unemployment insurance, something but we'll have some way of giving people, like, redistributing money in society as a cushion for people as people figure out the new jobs. But, and maybe I should touch on that. I'm not a believer at all that there won't be lots of new jobs. I think human creativity, desire for status, wanting different ways to compete, invent new things, feel part of a community, feel valued, that's not going to go anywhere. People have worried about that forever. What happens is we get better tools and we just
What's
invent new things and more amazing things to do. And there's a big universe.
I'm not sure what you mean.
Did you mean that, like, literally
mistype?
In that there's, like, space is really big, but also there's just so much stuff we can all do if we do get.
So right now I'm listening to a podcast, Joe Rogan, Sam Altman.
It gets created.
Sam Altman's the CEO of OpenAI.
But again, that doesn't, to the point we started with, that doesn't provide, like, great solace to people who are losing their jobs today. So saying there's going to be this great indefinite stuff in the future, people are like, what are we doing today? So, you know, I think we will, as a society, do things like UBI and other ways of redistribution, but I don't think that gets at the core of what people want. I think what people want is, like, agency, self-determination, the ability to play a role in architecting the future along with the rest of society, the ability to express themselves and create something meaningful to them. And also, I think a lot of people work jobs they hate, and I think we as a society are confused about whether we want to work more or work less. But somehow
less. We want to work less.
Something meaningful, and we all get to play our role in driving the future forward. That's really important. And what I hope is, as those long-haul truck driving jobs go away, which, you know, people have been wrong about predicting how fast that's going to happen, but it's going to happen. We figure out not just a way to solve the economic problem by, like, giving people the equivalent of money every month, but that there's a way that, and we have a lot of ideas about this, there's a way that we, like, share ownership and decision making over the future. A thing I say a lot about AGI is that everyone realizes we're going to have to share the benefits of that, but we also have to share, like, the decision making over it and access to the system itself. Like, I'd be more excited about a world where we say, rather than give everybody on Earth, like, 1/8 billionth of the AGI money, which we should do that too, we say you get, like, 1/8 billionth of a 1/8 billionth slice of the system. You can sell it to somebody else, you can sell it to a company, you can pool it with other people, you can use it for whatever creative pursuit you want, you can use it to figure out how to start some new business. And with that, you get sort of like a voting right over how this is all going to be used. And so the better the AGI gets, the more your little 1/8 billionth ownership is worth to you.
It's kind of crazy how some big supplement stores are, or how long the aisles and aisles of vitamins are at the pharmacy.
Oh my
You be popping
god.
pill? Check it out. Page to learn more. We were joking around the other day on the podcast where I was saying that what we need is an AI government. We should have an AI president and have AI
just
run
make all the
things.
decisions.
Yeah, have something that's completely unbiased, absolutely rational, has the accumulated knowledge of the entire human history at its disposal, including all knowledge of psychology and psychological study, including UBI, because that comes with a host of, you know, pitfalls and issues that people have with it.
So I'll say something there. I think we're still very far away from a system that is capable enough and reliable enough that any of us would want that. But I'll tell you something I love about that. Someday, let's say that thing gets built. The fact that it can go around and talk to every person on Earth, understand their exact preferences at a very deep level, you know, how they think about this issue and that one, and how they balance the trade-offs and what they want, and then understand all of that and like collectively optimize for the collective preferences of humanity or of citizens of the US, that's awesome.
As long as it's not co-opted, right? Our government currently is co-opted.
That's for sure.
We know for sure that our government is heavily influenced by special interests. if we could have an artificial intelligence government that has no influence, nothing has influence on it.
What a fascinating idea.
It's possible. And I think it might be the only way where you're going to get completely objective, the absolute most intelligent decision for virtually every problem, every dilemma that we face currently in society.
Would you truly be comfortable handing over like final decision making and say, all right, AI, you got it from here?
No, but I'm not comfortable doing that with anybody.
Right.
You know, I mean, I don't.
Right.
I was uncomfortable with the Patriot Act. I'm uncomfortable with
Totally.
many decisions that are being made. It's just there's so much obvious evidence that decisions that are being made are not being made in the best interest of the overall well of the people. It's being made in the decisions of whatever gigantic corporations that have donated to and whatever the military-industrial complex and pharmaceutical-industrial complex, and it's just the money. That's really what we know today, that money has a massive influence on our society and the choices that get made, and the overall good or bad for the population.
Yeah, I have no disagreement at all that the current system is super broken, not working for people, super corrupt, and for sure, like, unbelievably run by money.
Yeah.
And I think there is a way to do a better job than that with AI in some way, but and this might just be like a factor of sitting with the systems all day and watching all of the ways they fail. We got a long way to go.
A long way to go, I'm sure. But when you think of AGI, when you think of the possible future, like where it goes to, do you ever extrapolate? Do you ever like sit and pause and say, well, if this becomes sentient and it has the ability to make better versions of itself, how long before we're literally dealing with a god?
So the way that I think about this is, it used to be that like AGI was this very binary moment. It was before and after, and I think I was totally wrong about that. And the right way to think about it is this continuum of intelligence, this smooth exponential curve, back all the way to that sort of smooth curve of technological revolution. The amount of compute power we can put into the system, the scientific ideas about how to make it more efficient and smarter, to give it the ability to do reasoning, to think about how to improve itself, that will all come. But my model for a long time, I think if you look at the world of AGI thinkers, there's sort of two, particularly around the safety issues you're talking about, there's two axes that matter. There's the what's called short timelines or long timelines, to the first milestone of AGI.
Oh, hell yeah, let's go.
Is that going to happen in
Let's
a few years,
go.
a few decades, maybe even longer, although at this point I think most people are a few years.
I've been eating that
And then there's takeoff speed. Once we get there,
strange old
from there
lockpick.
to that point you were talking about where it's capable of the rapid self-improvement,
I'm trying to snag a couple of them before I go back to Barrows.
the world that I think that we're in, and also the world that I think is the most controllable and the safest, is the short timelines and slow takeoff quadrant. And I think we're going to have, there were a lot of very smart people for a while who were like, the thing you were just talking about happens in a day or 3 days. And that doesn't seem likely to me given the shape of the technology as we understand it now. Now, even if that happens in a decade or 3 decades, that's still like the blink of an eye from a historical perspective. And there are going to be some real challenges to getting that right. And the decisions we make, the sort of safety systems and the checks that the world puts in place, how we think about global regulation or rules of the road from a safety perspective for those projects, it's super important because you can imagine many things going horribly wrong. But I feel cheerful about the progress the world is making towards taking this seriously, and it reminds me of what I've read about the conversations that the world had right around the development of nuclear weapons.
It seems to me that this is, at least in terms of public consciousness, this has emerged very rapidly, where I don't think anyone was really aware. People were aware of the concept of artificial intelligence, but they didn't think that it was going to be implemented so comprehensively, so quickly.
Yeah.
So, ChatGPT is on what, 4.5 now?
4.
4. And with 4.5, there'll be some sort of an exponential increase in its abilities.
It'll be somewhat better. Each step, from each like half step like that, you kind of humans have this ability to like get used to any new technology so quickly.
Mm-hmm.
The thing that I think was unusual about the launch of ChatGPT 3.5 and then 4 was that people hadn't really been paying attention. And that's part of the reason we deploy. We think it's very important that people and institutions have time to gradually understand this, react, co-design the society that we want with it. And if you just build AGI in secret in a lab and then drop it on the world all at once, I think that's a really bad idea. So we had been trying to talk to the world about this for a while. People, if you don't give people something they can feel and use in their lives, they don't quite take it seriously. Everybody's busy. And so there was this big overhang from where the technology was to where public consciousness was. Now, that's caught up. We've deployed. I think people understand it. I don't expect the jump from like 4 to whenever we finish 4.5, which will be a little while. I don't expect that to be I think the crazy switch, the crazy adjustment that people have had to go through has mostly happened. I think most people have gone from thinking that AGI was science fiction and very far off to something that is going to happen. And that was like a one-time reframe. And now, every year you get a new iPhone. Over the 15 years or whatever since the launch, they've gotten dramatically better. But iPhone to iPhone, you're like, yeah, okay, it's a little better. But now if you go hold up the first iPhone to the 15 or whatever, that's a big difference. GPT 3.5 to AGI, that'll be a big difference. But along the way, it'll just get incrementally better.
Do you think about the convergence of things like Neuralink and there's a few competing technologies where they're trying to implement some sort of a connection between the human biological system and technology?
Do you want one of those things in your head?
I don't until everybody does.
Right.
And, I have a joke about it. But it's like, the idea is like, once it gets done, you have to, kind of.
Yeah.
Because everybody's going to have it.
So one of the hard questions about all of the related merge stuff is exactly what you just said. Like, as a society, are we going to let some people merge with AGI and not others? And if we do, then, and you choose not to, like, what does that mean for you?
Right. And will you be protected?
How you get that moment right, if we like imagine like all the way out to the sci-fi future, there's been a lot of sci-fi books written about how you get that moment right. Who gets to do that first? What about people who don't want to? How do you make sure that people that do it first like actually help lift everybody up together?
Yeah.
How do you make sure people who want to just like live their very human life get to do that? That stuff is really hard and honestly so far off from my problems of the day that I don't get to think about that as much as I'd like to, because I do think it's super interesting. But yeah, it seems like if we just think logically, that's going to be a huge challenge at some point, and people are going to want wildly divergent things, but there is a societal question about how we're going to, like, the questions of fairness that come there and what it means for the people who don't do it. Super, super complicated. Anyway, on the neural interface side, I'm in the short term, like before we figure out how to upload someone's conscience into a computer, if that's even possible at all, which I think there's plenty of sides you could take on why it's not. The thing that I find myself most interested in is what we can do without drilling a hole in someone's head. How much of the inner monologue can we read out with an externally mounted device? And if we have a imperfect, low bandwidth, low accuracy neural interface, can people still just learn how to use it really well in a way that's like quite powerful for what they can now do with a new computing platform? And my guess is we'll figure that out.
I'm sure you've seen that headpiece. There's a demonstration where there's someone asking someone a question. They have this headpiece on, they think the question, and then they literally Google the question and get the answers through their head.
That's the kind of thing that's the kind of direction we've been exploring.
Yeah. That seems to me to be step one. That's the Pong of
Yeah.
the eventual immersive 3D video games. Like you're going
Yeah.
to get these first steps, and they're going to seem sort of crude and slow. I mean, it's essentially slower than
Yeah,
just asking Siri.
I think if someone built a system where you could think words, doesn't have to be a question, it could just be your passive rambling inner monologue, but it certainly could be a question, and that was being fed into GPT-5 or 6, and in your field of vision the words in response were being displayed, that would be the Palm.
Yeah.
That's still that's a very valuable tool to have.
And that seems like that's inevitable.
There's hard work to get there on the neural interface side, but I believe it will happen.
Yeah. I think so too. And my concern is that the initial adopters of this will have such a massive advantage over the general population.
Well, that doesn't concern me, because that's like a, that's just like better, that's a better computer. You're not like jacking your brain into something in a high risk thing. You know what you do when you don't want them? When you take off the glasses.
Mm-hmm.
So that feels fine.
Well, this is just the external device then.
Oh, I think we can do the kind of like read your thoughts with an external device at some point. Read your internal monologue.
Interesting. And do you think we'll be able to communicate with an external device as well, telepathically, or semi-telepathically through technology?
I do.
Yeah.
Yeah, I do.
I think so too. My real concern is that once we take the step to use an actual neural interface, when there's an actual operation, and they're
Yeah.
using some sort of an implant, and then that implant becomes more sophisticated. It's not the iPhone 1, now it's the iPhone 15. And as these things get better and better, we're on the road to cyborgs. We're on the road to, like, why would you want to be a biological person? Do you really want to live in a fucking log cabin when you can be in the Matrix? I mean, it seems like we're on this path.
We're already a little bit down that path, right? Like if you take
Mhm.
away someone's phone and they have to go function in the world today,
Mm-hmm.
they're at a disadvantage relative
Yeah.
to everybody else. So that's like maybe that's like the lightest weight version of a merge we could imagine, but I think it's worth, like, if we go back to that earlier thing about the one exponential curve, I think it's worth saying we've like lifted off the x-axis already down this path,
Mm-hmm.
the tiniest bit. And yeah, even if you don't go all the way to like a neural interface, VR will get so good that some people just don't want to take it off that much.
Right.
And that's fine for them, as long as we can solve this question of how do we like think about what a balance of power means in a world. I think there will be many people, I'm certainly one of them, who's like, actually the human body and the human experience is pretty great. That log cabin in the woods, pretty awesome. I don't want to be there all the time. I'd love to go play the great video game, but like, I'm really happy to get to go there sometimes.
Yeah, there's still human experiences that are just like great human experience. Just laughing with friends, kissing someone that you've never kissed before, that you're on a first date. Those kind of things
Whoa,
are
people do
the
that.
real moments. It just laughs.
Yeah.
Having a glass of wine with a friend and just laughing.
Not quite the same in VR.
Yeah, it's
Now,
not.
when the VR goes super far, so you can't, it's like you are jacked in on your brain and you can't tell what's real and what's not. And then everybody gets like super deep on the simulation hypothesis or the like Eastern religion or whatever, and I don't know what happens at that point.
Do you ever fuck around with simulation theory? Because the real problem is when you combine that with probability theory and you talk to the people that say, well, if you just look at the numbers, the probability that we're already in a simulation is much higher than the probability that we're not.
It's never been clear to me what to do about it. It's like, okay, that intellectually makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
I think probably, sure.
Right.
Yeah, that seems convincing,
but now
this is
what?
my reality.
Yeah.
This is my life.
Yeah.
And I'm going to live it. And I've, from like 2 a.m. in my college freshman dorm hallway till now, I've made no more progress on it than that.
Well, it seems like one of those, there's no, it's, if it is a possibility, if it is real. First of all, once it happens, what are you going to do? I mean, that is the new reality. And in many ways, our new reality is as alien to, hunter-gatherers from 15,000 years ago as that would be to us now. I mean, we've already entered into some very bizarre territory where, I was just having a conversation with my kids. We were asking questions about something, and I always say, let's guess, what percentage of that is this? And then we just Google it, and then just ask Siri, and we pull it up. Like, look at that. Like, that alone is so bizarre compared to how it was when I was 13, and you had to go to the library and hope that the book was accurate.
Totally. I was very annoyed I was reading about how horrible systems like ChatGPT and Google are from an environmental impact because it's, using like some extremely tiny amount of energy for each query, and how we're all destroying the world. And I was like, before that, people drove to the library. Let's talk about how much carbon they burned to answer this question versus what it takes now. Come on.
But that's just people looking for some reason why something's bad. That's not a logical perspective. What we should be looking at is the spectacular changes that are possible through this, and all the problems, the insurmountable problems that we have with resources, with the environment, with cleaning up the ocean, climate change. There's so many problems that we
need
have.
this to solve all of everything else.
And that's why we need President AI.
If AI could make every scientific discovery, but we still had human presidents, do you think we'd be okay?
No, because those creeps would still be pocketing money, and they'd have offshore accounts, and it would always be a weird thing of corruption and how to mitigate that corruption. Which is also one of the fascinating things about the current state of technology, is that we're so much more aware of corruption. There's so much independent reporting, and we're so much more cognizant of the actual problems that are in place.
This is really great. One of the things that I've observed, obviously many other people too, is corruption is such an incredible hindrance to getting anything done in a society to make forward progress. And my worldview had been more U.S.-centric when I was younger, and as I've just studied the world more and had to work in more places in the world, like, it's amazing how much corruption there still is. But the shift to a technologically enabled world, I think, is a major force against it, because it's harder to hide stuff. And I do think corruption in the world will keep trending down.
Because of its exposure.
Yeah.
Through technology. This episode is brought to you by 8.
I mean, it comes at a... cost, and I think the loss that, like, I am very worried about how far the surveillance state could go here. But in a world where payments, for example, are no longer like bags of cash, but done somehow digitally, and somebody, even if you're using Bitcoin, can like watch those flows, I think that's like a corruption reducing thing.
I agree, but I'm very worried about central bank digital currency and that being tied to a social credit score. That
super
scares.
super against.
Yeah, that scares the shit
Super
out of me.
super against.
And that the push to that is not. That's not for the overall good of society. That's for control.
Yeah, I think like, I mean, there's many things that I'm disappointed that the U.S. government has done recently, but the war on crypto, which I think is a like, we can't give this up, like we're gonna control this and all like that's like, that's a thing that like makes me quite sad about the country.
It makes me quite sad about the country too. But then you also see with things like FTX, like, oh, well, this can get, without regulation and without someone overseeing it, this can get really fucked.
Yeah, I'm not anti-regulation. Like, I think there's clearly a role for it, and I also think FTX was like a sort of comically bad situation that we shouldn't learn
It's like
too
worst
much
case
from
scenario.
either. Yeah,
Yeah, but it's a fun one.
like it's totally fun, and you.
I love that story.
I mean, you clearly.
I really do. I love the fact that they were all doing drugs and having sex with each other.
Yeah, no, it had every part of the dramas of like a. I mean, it's a gripping story because it had everything there.
They did their taxes with like what was the program that they used? QuickBooks. They're dealing with billions of dollars.
I don't know why I think the word polycule is so funny, but
polycule.
That was what they like when you call a relationship like a poly but closed like polyamorous molecule put together.
Oh, I see.
So they were like, this is our polycule.
So there's 9 of them and they're poly,
or 10 of them or whatever. Yeah, and you call that a polycule. And I thought that was the funny, like, that became like a meme in Silicon Valley for a while that I thought was hilarious. You clearly want enough regulation that can't happen, but they're like.
Well, I'm not against that happening. I'm against them doing what they did with the money.
That's what I mean.
The polycule is kind of fun.
Go for it. No, I mean, you want enough thing that like FTX can't lose all of its depositors' money.
Yes.
But I think there's an important point here, which is you have all of this other regulation that people and it didn't keep us safe. And the basic thing, which was like, let's do that. That was not all of the crypto stuff people were talking about.
Yes. I mean, the real fascinating crypto is Bitcoin. To me, I mean, that's the one that I think has the most likely possibility of becoming a universal viable currency. And it's, it's limited in the amount that there can be. It's, people mine it with their own computer. It's like, that to me is very fascinating. And I love the fact that it's been implemented. And that at least I've had Andreas Antonopoulos on the podcast, and when he talks about it, he's living it. He's spending all of his money. Everything he gets paid is in Bitcoin. He pays his rent in Bitcoin. Everything he does is in Bitcoin.
I helped start a project called WorldCoin a few years ago. And so I've gotten to like learn more about the space. I'm excited about it for the same reasons. I'm excited about Bitcoin too. But I think this idea that we have a global currency that is outside of the control of any government is a super logical and important step on the tech tree.
Yeah, agreed. I mean, why should the government control currency? I mean, the government should be dealing with all the pressing environmental, social, infrastructure issues, foreign policy issues, economic issues. The things that we need to be governed in order to have a peaceful and prosperous society that's equal and equitable.
What do you think happens to money and currency after AGI?
I've wondered about that because I feel like with money, especially when money goes digital, the bottleneck is access. If we get to a point where all information is just freely shared everywhere, there are no secrets, there are no boundaries, there are no borders. We're reading minds. We have complete access to all of the information of everything you've ever done, everything everyone's ever said. There's no hidden secrets. What is money then? Money is this digital thing. Well, how can you possess it? How can you possess this digital thing if there's literally no bottleneck? There's no barriers to anyone accessing any information, because essentially it's just ones and zeros.
Yeah, I mean, another way, I think the information frame makes sense. Another way is that like money is like a sort of way to trade labor, or to trade like a limited number of hard assets like land and houses and whatever. And if you think about a world where like intellectual labor is just readily available and super cheap, then that's somehow very different. I think there will always be goods that we want to be scarce and expensive, but it'll only be those goods that we want to be scarce and expensive and services that still are. And so money in a world like that, I think, is just it's a very curious idea.
Yeah, it becomes a different thing. I mean, it's not a bag of gold in a leather pouch that you're carrying around.
Not going to do you much good, probably.
Yeah, it's not going to do you much good. But then the question becomes, how is that money distributed, and how do we avoid some horrible Marxist society where there's one totalitarian government that
just doles it out?
Yeah,
that would be bad. I think you've got to like. My current best idea, and maybe there's something better, is I think you like, if we are right, a lot of reasons we could be wrong, but if we are right that like the AGI systems, of which there will be a few, become the high order bits of sort of influence whatever in the world, I think you do need like not to just redistribute the money, but the access so that people can make their own decisions about how to use it and how to govern it. And if you've got one idea, you get to do this, and if I've got one idea, I get to do that. And I have like rights to basically do whatever I want with my part of it. And if I come up with better ideas than you, I get rewarded for that by whatever the society is, or vice versa.
Yeah. You know, the hardliners, the people that are against like welfare and against any sort of universal basic income, UBI, what they're really concerned with is human nature. Right, they believe that if you remove incentives, if you just give people free money, they become addicted to it, they become lazy. But isn't that a human biological and psychological bottleneck? And perhaps with the implementation of artificial intelligence combined with some sort of neural interface, whether it's external or internal, it seems like that's a problem that can be solved. That you can essentially, and this is where it gets really spooky, you can re-engineer the human biological system, and you can remove all of these problems that people have that are essentially problems that date back to human reward systems when we were tribal people, hunter-gatherer people. Whether it's jealousy, lust, envy, all these variables that come into play when you're dealing with money and status and social status, if those are eliminated with technology, and essentially we become a next version of what the human species is possible. Like, look, we're very, very far removed from tribal, brutal societies of cave people. We all agree that this is a way better way to live. It's way safer. You know, we were like I was talking about this at my comedy club last night because my wife was we were talking about DNA, and my wife was saying that look, everybody came from cave people, which is kind of a fucked up thought. That everyone here is here because of cave people. Well, all that's still in our DNA. All that's still and these reward systems can be hijacked, and they can be hijacked by just giving people money, and like, you don't have to work, you don't have to do anything, you don't have to have ambition, you'll just have money and just lay around and do drugs. That's the fear that people have of giving people free money. But if we can figure out how to literally engineer the human biological vehicle and remove all those pitfalls, if we can enlighten people technologically, maybe enlighten is the wrong word, but advance the human species to the point where those are no longer dilemmas, because those are easily solvable through coding. They're easily solvable through enhancing the human biological system, perhaps raising dopamine levels to the point where anger
is Joe Rogan talking about?
And hate are impossible. They don't exist. And
Holy fuck,
if you just had
out in the weeds with this question.
How many wars would there be? There'd be zero wars.
I mean, I think if you could get everyone on Earth to all do Molly once on the same day,
Stay on topic, man.
It would be.
If if you got everybody on Earth to do Molly every day, that'd be a real loss.
But what if they did a low dose of Molly, where you just get to, where everybody greets people with love and affection, and there's no longer concern about competition. Instead, the concern is about the fascination of innovation and creation and creativity.
He's
Man, we
out
could
in
talk
the
the rest of the time about
weeds
Yeah.
on this
topic.
one.
It's so interesting. I think if I could like push a button to like remove all human striving and conflict, I wouldn't do it, first of all. Like, I think that's a very important part of our story and experience. And also, I think we can see both from our own biological history and also from what we know about AI that very simple goal systems, fitness functions, reward models, whatever you want to call it, lead to incredibly impressive results. You know, if the biological imperative is survive and reproduce, look how far that has somehow gotten us as a society. All this stuff we have, all this technology, this building, whatever else, like that got here through an extremely simple goal in a
Shit.
very complex environment, leading to all of the richness and complexity of people fulfilling this biological imperative to some degree and wanting to impress each other. So I think like evolutionary fitness is a simple and unbelievably powerful idea. Now, could you carefully edit out every individual manifestation of that? Maybe, but I don't want to like live in a society of drones where everybody is just sort of like on Molly all the time either. Like, that doesn't seem like the right answer. Like, I want us to continue to strive. I want us to continue to push back the frontier and go out and explore. And I actually think something's already gotten a little off track in society about all of that, and I don't know. I think like I thought I'd be older by the time I felt like the old guy complaining about the youth. But I think we've lost something, and I think that we need more striving, maybe more risk-taking, more like explorer spirit.
What do you mean by you think we've lost something?
I mean, here's like a version of it very much from my own lens. I was a startup investor for a long time, and it often was the case that the very best startup founders were in their early or mid-20s, or late 20s maybe even, and now they skew much older. And what I want to know is, in the world today, where are the super great 25-year-old founders? And there are a few. It's not fair to say there are none, but there are less than there were before. And I think that's bad for society at all levels. I mean, like, tech company founders is one example, but like people who go off and create something new, who push on a disagreeable or controversial idea, we need that to drive forward. We need that sort of spirit. We need people to be able to, you know, put out ideas and be wrong, and not be ostracized from society for it, or not have it be like, you know, something that they get canceled for, or whatever. We need people to be able to take a risk in their career because they believe in some important scientific quest that may not work out, or may sound like really controversial or bad or whatever. You know, certainly when we started OpenAI and we were saying, we think this AGI thing is real and could be, you know, could be done, unlikely but so important if it happens. And all of the older scientists in our field were saying, those people are irresponsible. You shouldn't talk about AGI. That's like, you know, they're like selling a scam, or they're like, you know, they're kind of being reckless and it's going to lead to an AGI winter. Like, we said we believed. We said at the time, we knew it was unlikely, but it was an important quest. And we were going to go after it and kind of like fuck the haters. That's important to a society.
What do you think is the origin? Like, why do you think there are less young people that are doing those kind of things now as opposed to a decade or two ago?
I am so interested in that topic. I'm tempted to blame the education system, but I think that like interacts with society in all of these strange ways. It's funny, there was this like thing all over my Twitter feed recently trying to talk about like what caused the drop in testosterone in American men over the last few decades. And no one was like, this is a symptom, not a cause. And everyone was like, oh, it's the microplastics, it's the birth control pills, it's the whatever, it's the whatever, it's the whatever. And I think this is like not at all the most important piece of this topic, but it was just interesting to me sociologically that there was only talk about it being about what caused it, not about it being an effect of some sort of change in society.
But isn't what caused it, well, there's biological reasons why, like when we talk about the phthalates and microplastic pesticides, environmental factors, those are real.
Totally. And I don't again, I'm so far out of my depth and expertise here. It was just interesting to me that the only talk was about like biological factors, and not that somehow society can have some sort of effect.
Well, society most certainly has an effect.
Do you know what the answer to this is?
I don't. I mean, I've had a podcast with Dr. Shanna Swan, who wrote the book Countdown, and that is all about the introduction of petrochemical products and the correlating drop in testosterone, rise in miscarriages, the fact that these are ubiquitous endocrine disruptors that when they do blood tests on people, they find some insane number. It's like 90+% of people have phthalates in their system. And
I appreciate the metal cups.
Yeah, we try to mitigate it as much as possible. But I mean, you're getting it. If you're microwaving food, you're fucking getting it. You're just getting it. If you eat processed food, you're getting it. You're getting a certain amount of microplastics in your diet, and estimates have been that it's as high as a credit card of microplastics
like floating around
in your body. You consume a credit card of that a week.
Whoa.
The real concern is with mammals, because the introductions, when they've done studies with mammals and they've introduced phthalates into their body, there's a correlating one thing that happens is these animals, their taints shrink. Like the taint the mammal, when you look at males, it's 50% to 100% larger than the females. With the introduction of phthalates on the males, the taints start shrinking, the penises shrink, the testicles shrink, sperm count shrinks. So we know there's a direct biological connection between these chemicals and how they interact with bodies. So that's a real one. And it's also the amount of petrochemical products that we have, the amount of plastics that we use.
Man, this podcast is kind of a...
such an integral part of our culture and
this episode's kind of a fucking...
It's everywhere.
Downer.
And I've wondered if you think about how
drink from plastic.
These territorial apes evolve into this new advanced species. Wouldn't one of the very best ways be to get rid of one of the things that causes the most problems, which is testosterone? We need testosterone. We need aggressive men and protectors, but why do we need them? We need them because there's other aggressive men that are evil, right? So we need protectors from ourselves. We need the good, strong people to protect us from the bad, strong people. But if we're in the process of integrating with technology, if technology is an inescapable part of our life, if it is everywhere, you're using it, you have the Internet of Everything that's in your microwave, in your television, your computers, everything you use. As time goes on, that will be more and more a part of your life, and as these plastics are introduced into the human biological system, you're seeing a feminization of the males of the species. You're seeing a downfall in birth rate. You're seeing all these correlating factors that would sort of lead us to become this more peaceful, less violent, less aggressive less ego-driven thing.
Which the world is definitely becoming over
Yeah.
time. And I'm all for less violence, obviously. But I don't. Look, obviously, testosterone has many great things to say for it and some bad tendencies too. But I don't think a world, if we leave that out of the equation and just say like a world that has a spirit that, you know, we're gonna defend ourselves, we're going to we're going to find a way to like protect ourselves and our tribe and our society into this future, which you can get with lots of other ways. I think that's an important impulse. More than that, though, what I meant is about, if we go back to the issue of like, where are the young founders? Why don't we have more of those? And I don't think it's just the tech startup industry. I think you could say that about like young scientists or many other categories. Those are maybe just the ones that I know the best. In a world with any amount of technology, I still think we've gotta. It is our destiny in some sense to stay on this curve, and we still need to go figure out what's next, and after the next hill, and after the next hill, and it would be. My perception is that there is some long-term societal change happening here, and I think it makes us less happy too.
Right. It may make us less happy. But what I'm saying is, if the human species does integrate with technology, wouldn't a great way to facilitate that to be to kind of feminize the primal apes and to sort of downplay the role?
You mean like should the AGI put phthalates
well,
into
maybe,
the world?
I don't know if it's AGI. I mean, maybe it's just an inevitable consequence of technology. Because especially the type of technology that we use, which does have so much plastic in it, and then on top of that, the technology that's involved in food systems, preservatives, all these different things that we use to make sure that people don't starve to death. We've made incredible strides in that. There are very few people in this country that starve to death.
Yeah.
It's not a primary issue, but violence is a primary issue.
Yeah.
But our concerns about violence and our concerns about testosterone and strong men and powerful people is only because
we need to protect against
we need
others.
to protect against other
Is that true?
same things.
Is that really the only reason?
Sure. I mean, how many like incredibly violent women are out there running gangs?
No, that part for sure.
Yeah.
Clearly not very many. What I meant more is that the only reason that society values like strong masculinity?
Yeah, I think so. I think it's a biological imperative, right? And I think that biological imperative is because we used to have to defend against incoming tribes and predators and animals, and we needed someone who was stronger than most to defend the rest. And like that's the concept of the military. That's why Navy SEAL training is so difficult. We want the strongest of the strong to be at the tip of the spear. But that's only because there's people like that out there that are bad. If artificial general intelligence and the implementation of some sort of a device that changes the biological structure of human beings to the point where that is no longer a concern. Like if you are me and I am you and I know this because of technology, violence is impossible.
Yeah, look, by the time, if this goes all the way down the sci-fi path and we're all like merged into this one single like planetary universal whatever
Hive
consciousness,
mind.
then yes, you don't
need testosterone.
But you
especially if we can reproduce through other methods. Like this is the alien hypothesis, right? Like why do they look so spindly and without any gender, and when they have these big heads and tiny mouths?
They don't need physical strength.
They don't need physical strength. They have some sort of a telepathic way of communicating. They probably don't need sounds with their mouths, and they don't need this urge that we have to conquer and to spread our DNA. Like that's so much of what people do is these reward systems that were established when we were territorial apes.
There's a question to me about how much you can ever get rid of that if you make an AGI and it decides, actually, we don't need to expand. We don't need more territory. We're just like happy. We, at this point, you, me, it, the whole thing all together, all merged in. We're happy here on Earth. We don't need to get any bigger. We don't need to reproduce. We don't need to grow. We're just going to sit here and run. That sounds like a boring life.
I don't agree with that. I don't agree that that would be the logical conclusion. I think the logical conclusion would be they would look for problems and frontiers that are insurmountable to our current existence, like intergalactic communication and transportation.
What happens when it meets another AGI?
Conquest.
What happens when it meets an AGI that's a million years more advanced?
Or that.
Like, what does that look like? Yeah. That's what I've often wondered if we are... I call ourselves the biological caterpillars that create the electronic butterfly.
What are these tokens
that
for?
we're making a cocoon right now, and we don't even know what we're doing. And I think it's also tied into consumerism. Because what does consumerism do? Consumerism facilitates the creation of newer and better things. Because you always want the newest, latest, greatest. So you have more advanced technology in automobiles and computers and cell phones.
Hollow token, what is
and
this?
all of these different things, including medical science.
That's all for sure true. The thing I was like reflecting on as you were saying
To add
is
extra time.
I don't think
Interesting.
I'm not as optimistic that we can or even should overcome.
I might
our
do some rooftops.
biological
Got
base
tired doing this.
And to even go back one further level, like I think society is happiest where there's like roles for strong femininity and strong masculinity in the same people and in different people. And I don't think a lot of these like deep-seated things are gonna be able to get pushed aside very easily and still have a system that works. Like, sure, we can't really think about what if there were consciousness in a machine someday or whatever, what that would be like. And maybe I'm just like thinking too small-mindedly, but I think there is something about us that has worked in a super deep way. And it took evolution a lot of search space to get here. But I wouldn't discount it too easily.
But don't you think that cave people would probably have those same logical conclusions about life and sedentary lifestyle and sitting in front of a computer and not interacting with each other except through text?
Well,
I mean, isn't that like what you're saying is correct?
how different do you think our motivations are today, and kind of what really brings us genuine joy, and how we're wired at some deep level differently than cave people? Clearly, lots of other things have changed. We've got much better tools. But how different do you think it really is?
It's kind of crazy how some big supplement stores... Joe, I think that's the problem, is that genetically, at the base level, there's not much difference. And that these reward systems are all... we interact with
Get
all
some
of
fresh air on
whether it's
rooftops.
ego,
Down in that
lust,
damn dungeon for too
passion,
long.
fury, anger, jealousy, all these different things.
And
that-
you think we'll be
It's so nice and bright out here.
Yes. Yeah, I think that our concern with losing this aspect of what it means to be a person.
What a beautiful
This,
day
like,
in
the
Gillinor.
idea that we should always have conflict and struggle because conflict and struggle is how we facilitate progress, which is true, right? And combating evil is how the good gets greater and stronger if the good wins. But my concern is that that is all predicated on the idea that the biological system that we have right now is correct and optimal. And I think one of the things that we're dealing with the heightened states of depression and anxiety and the lack of meaning and existential angst that people experience, a lot of that is because the biological reality of being a human animal doesn't really integrate that well with this world that we've created.
That's for sure.
Yeah. And I wonder if the solution to that is not find ways to find meaning with the biological vessel that you've been given, but rather engineer those aspects that are problematic out of the system to create a truly enlightened being. Like, one of the things, if you ask someone today, what are the odds that in 3 years there will be no war in the world? That's zero. Like, nobody thinks, there's never been a time in human history where we haven't had war. If you had to say, what is our number one problem as a species? Well, I would say our number one problem is war. Our number one problem is this idea that it's okay to send massive groups of people who don't know each other to go murder massive groups of people that are somehow opposed because of the government, because of lines in the sand.
That's
and territory.
Clearly an insane thing.
It's an insane thing. How do you get rid of that? Well, one of the ways you get rid of that is to completely engineer out all the human reward systems that pertain to the acquisition of resources.
So what's left at that point?
Well, we're a new thing. I think we've become a new thing.
And what does that thing want?
I think that new thing would probably want to interact with other new things that are even more advanced than it.
I do believe that scientific curiosity can drive that can be a great frontier for a long time.
Yeah, I think it can be a great frontier for a long time as well. I just wonder if what we're seeing with the drop in testosterone, because of microplastics, which sort
kind
of
of a rough
snuck up on
podcast.
us. We didn't even know that it was an issue until
Usually
we
these
started
podcasts
studying
are
it.
better, but this one's kind of rough.
What's happening?
I don't
Like,
know.
what the fuck?
It's a very good question. Dr. Shanna Swan believes that it's the primary driving factor of the sort of drop in testosterone and all miscarriage
Fear
issues.
mongering.
All those things seem to have a direct. Seems to be a direct factor environmentally. I'm sure there's other factors too. The drop in testosterone. I mean, it's been shown that you can increase males' testosterone through resistance training and through making. There's certain things you can do. Like, one of the big ones they found through a study in Japan is cold water immersion before exercise. Yeah, it radically increases testosterone. So you cold water immersion and then exercise.
I wonder why.
That. Yeah, I don't know. Let's see if we can find that. But it's a fascinating field of study. But I think it has something to do with resilience and resistance, and the fact that your body has to combat this external factor that's very extreme that causes the body to go into this state of preservation, and the implementation of cold shock proteins and the reduction of inflammation, which also enhances the body's endocrine system. But then on top of that, this imperative that you have to become more resilient to survive this external factor that you've introduced into your life every single day. So there's ways, obviously, that you can make a human being more robust. We know that we can do that through strength training, and that all that stuff actually does raise testosterone. Your diet can raise testosterone, and a poor diet will lower it and will hinder your endocrine system, will hinder your ability to produce growth hormone, melatonin, all these different factors. That seems to be something that we can fix in terms, or at least mitigate with decisions and choices and effort. But the fact that these petrochemical there's a graph
Here we go.
Dr. Shanna Swan has in her book.
Microplastics
During
again.
the 1950s, when they
Let's
started
just talk about
using
microplastics
petrochemical
the whole
products in
time.
everything, microwave plastics, saran wrap, all this different stuff. There's a direct correlation between the implementation and the dip, and it all seems to line up. Like, that seems to be a primary factor.
Does that have an equivalent impact on like estrogen-related hormones?
That's a good question. Some of them actually, I know some of these chemicals that they're talking about actually increase estrogen in men. I don't know, but I do know that it increases miscarriages. So I just think it's overall disruptive to the
Definitely
human body.
A societal-wide disruption of the endocrine system in a short period of time. Seems like a just bad and difficult to wrap our heads around.
And then pollutants and environmental toxins on top of the pesticides and herbicides and all these other things and microplastics. There's a lot of factors that are leading our systems to not work well. But I just really wonder if this, like, are we just clinging on to this monkey body? Are we deciding
I like my monkey body.
I do too. Listen, I love it. But I try to be very objective. And when I objectively look at it in terms of, like, if you take where we are now and all of our problems and you look towards the future and, like, what would be one way that you could mitigate a lot of these? And it would be the implementation of some sort of a telepathic technology where, you couldn't just text someone or tweet at someone something mean, because you would literally feel what they feel when you put that energy out there, and you would be repulsed.
Yeah.
And then violence would be, if you were committing violence on someone and you literally felt the reaction of that violence in your own being.
That's
And
fascinating.
you would also have no motivation for violence. If we had no aggressive tendencies, no primal chimpanzee tendencies.
It's true that violence in the world has obviously gone down a lot over the decades, but emotional violence is up a lot, and the internet has been horrible for that.
Yeah.
Like, I'm not going to walk over there and punch you because you look like a big, strong guy. You're going to punch me back, and also there's a societal convention not to do that. But if I didn't know you, I might, like, send a mean tweet about you, and I feel nothing on that.
Yeah.
And clearly that has become, like, a mega epidemic in society that we did not evolve the biological constraints on somehow.
Yeah.
And I'm actually very worried about how much that's already destabilized us and made us all miserable.
It's certainly accentuated it. It's exacerbated all of our problems. If you read Jonathan Haidt's book, The Coddling of the American Mind, have you read it?
Great book.
Yeah, it's a great book, and it's very damaging to women, particularly young girls. Young girls growing up, there's a direct correlation between the invention of social media, the introduction to the iPhone, self-harm, suicide, online bullying. People have always talked shit about people when no one's around.
I think
the fact that they're doing it now openly to harm people.
Horrible, obviously.
Online.
I think it's super damaging to men too. Maybe they just like talk about it less, but I don't think any of us are like set up for this.
No one's set up for it. And I think famous people know that more than anyone.
Well, we all get used to it.
Yeah, you just get numb to it. Or if you're wise, you don't engage. I don't engage. I don't even have any apps on my new phone.
Yeah.
I've decided, I got a new phone and I decided, okay, nothing.
That's really smart.
No Twitter. So I have a separate phone that if I have to post something I pick up. But all I get on my new phone is text messages.
And is that more just to, like, keep your mind pure and unpolluted? Yeah.
And not tempt myself into just... Do you know how many fucking times I've got up to go to the bathroom first thing in the morning and spent an hour just sitting on the toilet scrolling through Instagram? Like, for nothing. It does zero for me. And there's this thought that I'm going to get something out of it.
I was thinking, actually just yesterday, about how... we all have talked for so long about these algorithmic feeds are going to manipulate us in these big ways, and that will happen. But in the small ways already, where, like, scrolling Instagram is not even that fulfilling. Like, you finish that hour and you're like, I know that was a waste of my time.
Yeah.
But it was, like, over the threshold where you couldn't quite... It's hard to put the phone down.
Right. You're just hoping that the next one's going to be interesting. And every now and then, the problem is every, like, 30th or 40th reel that I click on is wild.
I wonder, by the way, if that's more powerful than if everyone was wild, if everyone was great.
Sure.
It's like the slot
you have to
machine
mine
effect.
for gold.
Yeah.
You don't just go out and pick it like daisies
So it's
where
like
it's out in the field everywhere.
if the algorithm is, like, intentionally feeding you some shit along the way.
Yeah. Well, there's just a lot of shit out there, unfortunately. But it's just... In terms, I was talking to Sean O'Malley, who's this UFC fighter, who's, obviously has a very strong mind, really interesting guy. But one of the things that Sean said is, like, I get this, like, low-level anxiety from scrolling through things, and I don't know why. Like, what is that? And I think it's part of the logical mind realizes this is a massive waste of your resources.
I also deleted a bunch of that stuff off my phone because I just didn't have the self-control. I mean, I had the self-control to delete it, but, like, not to stop once I was scrolling through.
Yeah.
And so I think we're just, like, yeah, we're getting attention hacked in some ways. There's some good to it too, but we don't yet have the stuff in place, the tools, the societal norms, whatever, to modulate it well.
Right. And we're not designed for it. I mean, this
Certainly.
is a completely new technology that, again, hijacks our human reward systems and hijacks all of the checks and balances that are in place for communication, which historically has been one on one. Historically, communication has been one person to another. And when people write letters to each other, it's generally things like if someone writes
Yeah.
a love letter, or they
Yeah.
miss you,
Yeah.
they're writing this thing where they're kind of exposing a thing that maybe they have a difficulty in expressing in front of you. And it was not, generally, unless the person was a psycho, they're not hateful letters. Whereas the ability to just communicate, fuck that guy, I hope he gets hit by a bus, is so simple and easy, and you don't experience.
Twitter seems to be particularly horrible for this as
Yeah.
the mechanics work.
Yeah.
It really rewards in ways that I don't think anybody fully understands, that like taps into something about human psychology.
Yeah.
But that's kind of like, that's how you get engagement, that's how you get
Mm-hmm.
like followers, that's how you get the dopamine hits or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
And like the people who I know that spend all day on Twitter, more of them are unhappy about it than happy.
Oh yeah, they're the most unhappy. I mean, there's quite a few people that I follow that I only follow because they're crazy, and then I'll go and check in on them and see what the fuck they're tweeting about. And some of them are on there 8-10 hours a day. I'll see tweets all day long, and I know that person cannot be happy.
They're unhappy and they cannot stop.
You can't stop, and it seems like it's their life. And they get meaning out of it in terms of reinforcement.
They get short-term meaning out of
Yes,
it. I think maybe each day you go to bed feeling like you accomplished something and got your
Right.
dopamine, and at the end of each decade, you probably are like, where'd that decade go?
Yeah, I was talking to a friend of mine who was having a real problem with it. He's saying he would be literally walking down the street and he'd have to check his phone to see who's replying, and he wasn't even looking where he was walking. He was just like caught up in the anxiety of these exchanges.
And it's not because of the nice things people say.
No. It's all. And with him, he was recognizing that he was dunking on people, and then
Yeah.
seeing
Yeah,
people
yeah.
respond to the dunking. And yeah, I stopped doing that a long time ago. I stopped interacting with people on Twitter in a negative way. I just won't do it.
Yeah.
Even if I disagree with someone, I'll say something
I
as
have, like-
peacefully as possible.
I have like more of an internet troll streak than I would like to admit. And so I try to just like not give myself too much temptation, but I slip up sometimes.
Yeah, it's so tempting.
Totally.
It's so tempting and it's fun. It's fun to just say something shitty.
I mean,
See what
again, whatever
happens.
this biological system we were talking about earlier,
Yeah.
that gets a positive reward
Well,
in the moment.
there's there's reactions. You say something outrageous and someone's going to react, and that reaction is like energy, and there's all these other human beings engaging with your idea. But ultimately, it's just not productive for most people, and it's psychologically, it's just fraught with peril. There's just so much going on. I don't know anybody who engages all day long that's happy.
Certainly not. I don't like. I mean, I think I've watched it. Like, destroy is too strong of a word, but like, knock off track the careers or lives or happiness or human relationships of people that are like good, smart, conscientious
Mhm.
people.
Yeah.
That just like couldn't fight this demon because
Yeah.
it like hacked their.
And COVID really accentuated that because people were alone and isolated. And that made it even worse because then they felt even better saying shitty things to people.
I'm unhappy. I'm
Yeah.
gonna say even
Yeah.
worse things about you.
And then there was the psychological aspect of it, like the angst that came from being socially isolated and terrified about this invisible disease that's going to kill us all. And so you have this like, and then you're interacting with people on Twitter, and then you're caught up in that anxiety, and you're doing it all day. And I know quite a few people, especially comedians, that really lost their minds and lost the respect of their peers by doing that.
I have a lot of sympathy for people who lost their minds during COVID because what a unnatural thing for us all to go through, and the
Mhm.
isolation was just brutal. But a lot of people did, and I don't think the internet, and particularly not the kind of like social dynamics of things like Twitter, I don't think that like brought out anyone's best.
No. Well, I mean, some people, I think, if they're not they're not inclined to be shitty to people. I think some people did seek comfort and they did interact with people in positive ways.
Yeah.
I see there's plenty of positive. I think the thing is the negative interactions are so much more impactful.
Yeah, I think there are a lot of people who use these systems for wonderful things. I didn't mean to imply that's not the case, but that's not what drives people's emotions after getting off the platform at the end of the day.
Right. Right. And it's also probably not, if you looked at a pie chart of the amount of interactions on Twitter, I would say a lot of them are shitting on people and being angry about
How
things.
many of the people that you know that use Twitter those 8 or 10 hours a day are just saying wonderful things about other people all day versus the virulent?
Very few.
Yeah.
Very few. I don't know any of them. I know. But then again, I wonder, with the implementation of some new technology that makes communication a very different thing than what we're currently, like what we're doing now with communication is less immersive than communicating one-on-one. You and I are talking, we're looking into each other's eyes, we're getting social cues, we're smiling at each other, we're laughing. It's a very natural way to talk. I wonder if through the implementation of technology, if it becomes even more immersive than a one-on-one conversation, even more interactive, and you will understand even more about the way a person feels about what you say,
Yeah.
about that person's memory, that person's life, that person's history, their education, how it comes out of their mind, how their mind interacts with your mind, and you see them. You really see them. I wonder if what we're experiencing now is just like the first time people invented guns, they just started shooting at things, you know?
Yeah. If you can like feel what I feel when you say something mean to me or nice to me,
Right.
like that's clearly going to change what you decide to say.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah, unless you're a psycho.
Unless you're a psycho.
And then what causes someone to be a psycho, and can that be engineered out? Imagine if what we're talking about when we're dealing with the human mind, we're dealing with various diseases, bipolar,
Yeah.
schizophrenia. Imagine a world where we can find, and through coding and some sort of an implementation of technology that elevates dopamine and serotonin and and does some things to people that eliminates all of those problems and allows people to communicate in a very pure way.
It sounds great.
It sounds great, but you're not going to have any rock and roll. Stand-up comedy will die. You'll have no violent movies. There's a lot of things that are going to go out the window. But maybe that is also part of the process of our evolution.
Oh my
to the next stage of
god,
existence.
dooming.
Maybe. I feel genuinely confused on this.
Well, I think
Yeah.
you should be. I mean, to be.
We're gonna find out.
Yeah.
I'm
I mean, to be
confused on the
sure,
stupid
that
fucking
means good.
questions.
That's the same.
But I don't even have like
Hubris beyond belief.
Right.
I mean, from the. When did OpenAI? When did you first start this project?
Like the very beginning, end of 2015, early 2016.
And when you initially started this project, what kind of timeline did you have in mind, and has it stayed on that timeline, or is it just wildly out of control?
I remember talking with John Schulman, one of our co-founders, early on, and he was like, "Yeah, I think it's gonna be about a 15-year project," and I was like, "Yeah, it sounds about right to me." And I've always sort of thought since then. Now, I no longer think of like AGI as quite the end point, but to get to the point where we like accomplish the thing we set out to accomplish, that would take us to like 2030, 2031. That has felt to me like all the way through kind of a reasonable estimate with huge error bars. And I kind of think we're on the trajectory I sort of would have assumed.
And what did you think the impact on society would be? Like, did you, when you first started doing this, and you said, okay, if we are successful, and we do create some massively advanced AGI, what is the implementation, and what is the impact on society? Did you sit there and have like a graph, like you had the pros on one side, the cons on the other? Did you just sort of abstractly consider?
Well, we definitely talked a lot about the cons. Many of us were super worried about, and still are, about safety and alignment. And if we build these systems, we can all see the great future. That's easy to imagine. But if something goes horribly wrong, it's like really horribly wrong. And so there was a lot of discussion about, and really a big part of the founding spirit of this is like, how are we going to solve this safety problem? What does that even mean? One of the things that we believe is that the greatest minds in the world cannot sit there and solve that in a vacuum. You've got to like have contact with reality. You've got to see where the technology goes. Practice plays out in a stranger way than theory. And that's certainly proven true for us. But we had a long list of, well, I don't know if we had a long list of cons. We had a very intense list of cons because, there's like all of the last decades of sci-fi telling you about how this goes wrong. You're supposed to shoot me right now.
Yeah.
And
I'm sure you've seen the John Connor chat GPT.
I haven't.
Memes.
What is it?
It's like, John Connor from the Terminator, the kid, looking at you when you open up chat GPT.
Yeah. So that stuff we were like very clear in our minds on. Now, I think we understand there's a lot of work to do, but we understand more about how to make AI safe in the AI safety gets overloaded. Like, does it mean don't say something people find offensive, or does it mean don't destroy all of humanity, or some continuum? And I think the word is like gotten overloaded. But in terms of the like not destroy all of humanity version of it, we have a lot of work to do. But I think we have finally more ideas about what can work. And given the way the systems are going, we have a lot more opportunities available to us to solve it than I thought we would have, given the direction that we initially thought the technology was going to go. So that's good. On the positive side, the thing that I was most excited about then and remain most excited about now is, what if this system can dramatically increase the rate of scientific knowledge in society? That is I think that kind of like all real sustainable economic growth, the future getting better, progress in some sense, comes from increased scientific and technological capacity so we can solve all of the problems. And if the AI can help us do that, that's always been the thing I've been most excited about.
Well, it certainly seems like that is the greatest potential, greatest positive potential of AI. It is to solve a lot of the problems that human beings have had forever, a lot of the societal problems that seem to be, I mean, that's why I was talking about an AI president. I'm kind of not joking, because I feel like if something was hyper intelligent and aware of all the variables with no human bias and no incentives, no other than here's your program, the greater good for the community of the United States and the greater good for that community as it interacts with the rest of the world. The elimination of these dictators, these whether they're elected or non-elected, who impose their will on the population because they have a vested interest in protecting special interest groups and industry.
I think as long as the thing that I find scary when you say that is it feels like it's humanity not in control, and I reflexively don't like that. But if it's instead like it is the collective will of humanity being expressed without the mistranslation and corrupting influences along the way, then I can see it.
Is that possible? It seems like it would be. It seems like if it was programmed in that regard to do the greater good for humanity and take into account the values of humanity, the needs of humanity.
There's something about the phrase "do the greater good for humanity."
I know, it's terrifying. It's very Orwellian. All of it is. But also, so is artificial general intelligence.
For sure.
Open the door.
I wish I had worked on something that was less morally fraught.
But do you? Because it's really exciting.
I cannot imagine a cooler thing to work on. I feel unbelievably. I feel like the luckiest person on earth.
That's awesome.
It is not. It's not on easy mode. Let's say that.
Oh,
This is not life on easy mode.
No. I mean, you are at the forefront of one of the most spectacular changes in human history. And I would say more spectacular than the implementation of the internet. I think the implementation of the internet was the first baby steps of this, and that artificial general intelligence is it is the internet on steroids. It's the internet in hyperspace.
What I would say is it's the next step, and there will be more steps after. But it's our most exciting step yet.
Yeah. My wonder is, what are those next steps after?
Isn't that so exciting to think about?
It's very exciting. I think we're the last people. I really do. I think we're the last of the biological people with all the biological problems. I think there's a
And do you feel excited about that?
I just think that's just what it is.
You're just fine with it.
It is what it is, I mean, that I don't think you can control it at this point, other than some massive natural disaster that resets us back to the Stone Age, which is also something we should be very concerned with, because it seems like that happens a lot and we're not aware of it, because the timeline of a human body is so small. The timeline of the human existence as a person is 100 years if you're lucky, but yet the timeline of the Earth is billions of years. And if you look at how many times life on Earth has been reset by comets slamming into the Earth and just completely eliminating all technological advances.
What an anxiety fucking filled podcast this is. Or episode.
I always think we don't think about that quite enough.
Oh my god. Dooming and glooming.
We talked about the simulation hypothesis earlier. It's had this big resurgence in detective
Shit,
series.
hold on. I'm fucked up here.
One of the new takes on it as we get closer to AGI is that, if ancestors were simulating us, the time they'd want to simulate again and again is right up to the, the lead up to the creation of AGI.
Yeah.
So it seems very crazy we're living through this time. It's not a coincidence at all. This is the time that is after we had enough cell phones out in the world, like recording tons of video to train the video model of the world that's all being jacked into us now via brain implants or whatever, and before everything goes really crazy with AGI. And it's also this interesting time to simulate, can we get through? Does the asteroid come? right before we get there for dramatic tension. Like, do we figure out how to make this safe? Do we figure out how to societally agree on it? So that's led to like a lot more people believing it than before, I think.
Yeah, for sure. And again, I think this is just where it's going. I mean, I don't know if that's a good thing or a bad thing. It's just a thing. But it's certainly better to live now. I would not want to live in the 1800s and be in a covered wagon trying to make my way across the country.
Yeah, we got the most exciting time in history yet.
It's the best. It's the best, but it's also has the most problems, the most social problems, the most awareness of social, environmental, infrastructure, the issues
we get
that
to
we have.
we get to go solve them.
Yeah.
And I, intuitively, I think I feel something somewhat different than you, which is I think humans in something close to this form are going to be around for a lot longer than, I don't think we're the last humans.
How long do you think we have?
Like longer than a time frame I can reason about.
Really?
Now, there may be like, I could totally imagine a world where some people decide to merge and go off exploring the universe with AI, and there's a big universe out there, but like, can I really imagine a world where, short of a natural disaster, there are not humans pretty similar to humans from today on Earth doing human-like things, and the sort of spirit of humanity merged into these other things that are out there doing their thing in the universe? It's very hard for me to actually see that happening. And maybe that means I'm like going to turn out to be a dinosaur and Luddite and horribly wrong in this prediction. But I would say I feel it more over time as we make progress with AI, not less.
Yeah, I don't feel that at all. I feel like we're done.
In like a few years.
No,
a few decades.
Maybe a generation or two. It'll probably be a gradual change, like wearing of clothes. You know, I don't think everybody wore clothes and they invented clothes. I think it probably took a while. And someone figured out shoes. I think that probably took a while. And they figured out structures, doors, houses, cities, agriculture. All those things were slowly implemented over time and then now become everywhere. And I think this is far more transformative.
And is part of that because you don't think there will be an option for some people not to merge?
Right. Just like there's not an option for some people to not have telephones anymore. It's like I used to have friends like, I don't even have email.
Right.
Those people don't exist anymore.
Right.
They all have email.
Right.
Everyone has a phone, at least a flip phone. I know some people that they just can't handle social media and all that jazz. They went to a flip phone. Good for them.
I don't know if this is true or not. I've heard you can't like walk into an AT&T store anymore and still buy a flip phone. I heard
You
that just
can.
changed. You can?
Oh, really?
Someone told
Maybe.
me this, but I don't know if it's true.
Verizon still has them.
Okay.
I was just there. They still have flip phones. I was like, I like it. I like this fucking little thing that you just call people. And I always like romanticize about going to that. But my step was to go to a phone that has nothing on it but text messages. And that's been a few days.
Feeling good so far?
Yeah, it's good, you know? I still have my other phone that I use for social media, but when I pick that motherfucker up, I start scrolling through YouTube and watching videos and scrolling through TikTok or Instagram. I don't have TikTok, but I tried Threads for a little while, but I'm like, it's just like fucking ghost town. So I went right back to X.
I live on a ranch during the weekends, and there's
Nice.
Wi-Fi in the house, but there's no cell phone coverage anywhere else. And it's every week I forget how nice it is and what a change it is to go for a walk
Yeah.
with no cell phone coverage.
It's good for your mind.
It's unbelievable for your mind, and I think we have like so quickly lost something.
Mm-hmm.
Like out of service just doesn't happen. It doesn't even happen on airplanes anymore.
Right.
You know, and like, but that, like hours where your phone just cannot buzz.
Yeah.
No text message either.
Nothing.
I think that's a really healthy thing.
I dropped my phone once when I was in Lanai, and I think it was the last time I dropped the phone. The phone was like, we're done. And it just started calling people randomly. Like, it would just call people, and I'd hang it up, and it would call another person. I'd hang it up, and I was showing my wife. I was like, look at this. This is crazy. It's just calling people. And so the phone was broken. And so I had to order a phone. And we were on vacation for like 8 days. And it took 3 days for Apple to get me a phone.
I bet you had a great 3 days.
It was amazing. It was amazing because when I was hanging out with my family, I was totally present. There was
Yeah.
no options. And I wasn't thinking about checking my phone because it
Yeah.
didn't exist. I didn't have one. And there was a alleviation of, again, what Sean was talking about, that low level of anxiety. It's sort of like, that you have when you always want to check your phone.
Yeah, I think that thing, it's so bad. We have not figured out yet, like, the technology has moved so fast, biology moves very slowly. We have not figured out how we're going to function in a society and get those occasional times when, you know, your phone is broken for 3 days.
Yeah.
Or you go for a walk with no service. But it's like, I very much feel like my phone controls me, not the other way around.
Uh-huh.
And I hate it, but I haven't figured out what to do about it.
Well, that's what I'm worried about with future technology, is that this, which was so unanticipated, if you'd imagine a world when you imagine going up to someone in 1984 and pointing to a phone and saying, one day that'll be in your pocket and it's going to ruin your life. Like, what? Like, yeah, one day people are going to be jerking off to that thing. You're like, what? One day people are going to be watching people get murdered on Instagram. I've received so many murders on Instagram over the last few months.
Really? I've never seen one.
It's been a bad timeline. Me and my friend Tom Segura, every morning we text each other the worst things that we find on Instagram.
Why?
For fun. He's a comedian.
Okay.
We're both comedians.
That's fun to you?
Yeah. It's just fucking
All right.
just ridiculous. I mean, just crazy car accidents. People get gored by bulls, and like we try to top each other. So every day he's sending me the most. Every day when I wake up and I check, Tom, fuck, you know. It's
Can you explain what's fun about that?
well, he's a comic, and I'm a comic, and comics like chaos. We like ridiculous, outrageous shit that is just so far beyond the norm of what you experience in a regular day.
Got
Just, and also the understanding of the wide spectrum of human behavior. If you're a nice person and you surround yourself with nice people, you very rarely see someone get shot. You very rarely see people get stabbed for no reason randomly on the street. But on Instagram, you see that every day. And there's something about that where it just reminds you, oh, we're crazy. Like the human species, like there's a certain percentage of us that are just off the rails and just out there just causing chaos and jumping dirt bikes and landing on your neck, and like all that stuff is out there.
Even to hear that makes me like
Yeah.
physically, like, I know that happens, of course.
Mm-hmm.
And I know, like, not looking at it doesn't make it not happen.
Right.
But it makes me so uncomfortable, and I'm happy to watch.
Oh yeah, it makes me uncomfortable too. But yeah, we do it to each other every day. And it's not good. It's definitely not good, but it's also, I'm not gonna stop. It's fun. But why is it fun? It's fun because it's my friend Tom, and we're both kind of the same in that way. We just look at that. Look at this.
That I
look
get.
at that, look at this. And it's just a thing we started doing a few months ago. It's just can't stop.
And Instagram has, like, learned that you do that, so it just keeps showing you more and more.
Instagram knows when my search page is a mess. When I go to the Discover
Some awful
page,
stuff happening to people.
it's just crazy. But the thing is, it shows up in your feed too. That's what I don't understand about the algorithm. It knows you're fucked up, so it shows up in your feed of things like, even if they're not people I follow, but Instagram shows them to me anyway.
I heard an interesting thing a few days ago about Instagram and the feed, which is if you use it at off hours, when they have more processing capability available because less people are using it, you get better recommendations. So your feed will be better in, like, the middle of the night.
What is better though? Doesn't your feed
More addictive to you or whatever.
right? So for me, better would be more murders, more animal attacks.
Sounds horrible.
It's horrible. But it's just, it seems to know that's what I like. It seems to know that that's what I interact with, so it's just sending me that most of the time. Yeah.
That probably has all kinds of crazy psychological
I'm
effects.
sure. Yeah, I'm sure that's also one of the reasons why I want to get rid of it and move away from it.
Yeah, so maybe it went too far.
I don't even know if it's too far, but what it is it's showing me the darker regions of society, of civilization, of human behavior.
But you think we're about to edit all that out?
I wonder if that is a solution. I really do. because I don't think it's outside the realm of possibility. If we really truly can engineer like one of the talks about Neuralink that's really promising is people with spinal cord issues, injuries, people that can't move their body, and being able to hotwire that, where essentially it controls all these parts of your body that you couldn't control anymore. And so that would be an amazing thing for people that are injured, for amazing thing for people that are, you know, they're paralyzed, they have all sorts of neurological conditions. That is probably one of the first, and that's what Elon's talked about as well, one of the first implementations, the restoration of sight, you know, cognitive function enhanced for people that have brain issues.
That's tremendously exciting.
Yeah.
And like many other technologies, I don't think we can stop neural interfaces, nor because of the like great good that's going to happen along the way. But I also don't think we know where it goes.
It's Pandora's box for sure. And I think when we open it, it's just, we're not going to go back. Just like we're not going to go back to no computers without some sort of natural disaster.
By the way, I mean this is a great compliment. You are one of the most neutral people I have ever heard talk about the merge coming. You're just like, yeah, I think it's going to happen. You know, it's be good in these ways, bad in these ways, but you seem like unbelievably neutral about it, which is always something I admire.
I try to be as neutral about everything as possible, except for corruption, which I think is just like one of the most massive problems with the way our culture is governed. I think corruption is just and the influence of money is just a giant, terrible issue. But in terms of like social issues and in terms of the way human beings believe and think about things, I try to be as neutral as possible, because I think the only way to really truly understand the way other people think about things is try to look at it through their mind. And if you have this inherent bias and this you have this like very rigid view of what's good and bad and right and wrong, I don't think that serves you very well for understanding why people differ. So I try to be as neutral and as objective as possible when I look at anything. This is a skill that I've learned. This is not something I had in 2009 when I started this podcast. This podcast I started just fucking around with friends, and I had no idea what it was going to, I mean, there's no way I could have ever known. But also had no idea what it was going to do to me as far as the evolution of me as a human being. I am so much nicer. I'm so much more aware of things. I'm so much more conscious of the way other people think and feel. I'm just a totally different person than I was in 2009, which is hard to recognize. I mean, it's hard to believe.
That's really cool.
But that it's just an inevitable consequence of this unexpected education that I've received.
Did the empathy kind of like come on linearly?
Yes.
And that was not a...
No, it just came. It came on Well, first of all, it came on recognizing that the negative interactions on social media that I was doing, they didn't help me. They didn't help the person. And then having compassion for this person that's fucked up or done something stupid, like it's not good to just dunk on people. Like there's no benefit there other than to give you some sort of social credit and get a bunch of likes. It didn't make me feel good. Like that's not good. And also a lot of psychedelics, a ton of psychedelic experiences from 2009 on, and with every one a greater understanding of the impact. Like I had one recently, and when I had the one recently, like the overwhelming message that I was getting through this was that everything I say and do ripples off into all the people that I interact with. And that if I'm not doing something with at least the goal of overall good or overall understanding, that I'm doing bad. And that bad is a real thing. As much as you try to ignore it because you don't interface with it instantly, and you're still creating unnecessary negativity. And that I should avoid that as much as possible. It was like an overwhelming message that this psychedelic experience was giving me. And I took it because I was just particularly anxious that day about the state of the world, particularly anxious about Ukraine and Russia and China and the political system that we have in this country and this incredibly polarizing way that the left and the right engage with each other, and God, it just seems so just tormented. And so I was just some days I just get, I think too much about it. I'm like, I need something to crack me out of this. So I took these psychedelics.
Are you surprised psychedelic therapy has not made, from what you thought would happen in say the early 2010s till now, are you surprised it has not made more progress sort of on a path to legalization as a medical treatment?
No, I'm not, because there's a lot of people that don't want it to be in place, and those people have tremendous power over our medical system and over our regulatory system. And those people have also not experienced these psychedelics. There's very few people that have experienced profound psychedelic experiences that don't think there's an overall good for those things. So the problem is you're having these laws and these rules implemented by people who are completely ignorant about the positive effects of these things. And if you know the history of psychedelic prohibition in this country, it all took place during 1970, and it was really to stop the civil rights movement, and it was really to stop the anti-war movement. And they tried to find a way to make all these things that these people were doing that was causing them to think in these very different ways, this tune in, turn on, drop out. They just wanted to put a fucking halt to that. What better way than to lock everyone who participates in that in cages? Find the people who are producing it, lock them in cages, put them in jail for the rest of their life, make sure it's illegal, arrest people, put the busts on television, make sure that people are aware. And then there's also, you connect it to drugs that are inherently dangerous for society and detrimental. The fentanyl crisis, the crack cocaine crisis that we experienced in the 90s. Like all of those things, they're under the blanket of drugs. Psychedelic drugs are also talked about like drugs, even though they have these profound spiritual and psychological changes that they, imbibe in a person.
I remember when I was in elementary school and I was in like drug education, they talked about, marijuana is really bad because it's a gateway to these other things, and there's this bad one, that bad one, heroin, whatever. And the very end of the line, the worst possible thing is LSD.
Did you take LSD and go, oh, they're lying?
Psychedelic therapy was definitely one of the most important things in my life, and I assumed, given how powerful it was for me, I struggled with all kinds of anxiety and other negative things, and to watch all of that go away in
that.
I traveled to another country for a week, did a few things, came back, a totally different person. And I was like, I've been lied to my whole life.
Yeah.
I'm so grateful that this happened to me now. Talked to a bunch of other people, all similar experiences. I assume this was a while ago. I assumed it was, and I was like, you know, very interested in what was happening in the U.S. I was like, particularly like looking at where MDMA and psilocybin were on the path, and I was like, all right, this is gonna get through. Like this is gonna like change the mental health of a lot of people in a really positive way. And I am surprised we have not made faster progress there, but I'm still optimistic we will.
Well, we have made so much progress from the time of the 1990s. In the 1990s, you never heard about psychedelic retreats. You never heard about people taking these vacations. You never heard about people getting together in groups and doing these things and coming back with these profound experiences that they relayed to other people, and literally seeing people change, seeing who they
Yeah.
are change, seeing people become less selfish, less toxic, less mean. You know, and more empathetic and more understanding.
Totally.
Yeah, it's. I mean, I can only talk about it from a personal experience. It's been a radical change in my life, as well as, again, having all these conversations with different people. I feel so fortunate to be able to do this, that I've had so many different conversations with so many different people that think so differently, and so many exceptional people that have accomplished so many incredible things. And you get to sort of understand the way their mind works and the way they see the world, the way they interface with things.
It's awesome.
It's pretty fucking cool. And that is one of the cooler things about being a human, that you can find a way to mitigate all the negative aspects of the monkey body. And that there are tools that are in place. But
Shit.
unfortunately, in this very prohibitive society, this society of prohibition, we're denied those. And we're denied ones that have never killed anybody, which is really bizarre when, you know, OxyContin can still be prescribed.
What's the deal with why we can't make, if we leave like why we can't get these medicines that have transformed people's lives like more available? What's the deal with why we can't stop the opioid crisis? Or like fentanyl
Boy.
seems like just an unbelievable crisis for San Francisco.
You remember when the beginning of the conversation we said that AI will do a lot of good, overall good, but also
Yeah.
not no harm. If we legalize drugs, all drugs, that would do the same thing.
Would you advocate to legalize all drugs?
It's a very complicated question, because I think you're going to have a lot of addicts that wouldn't be addicts. You're going to have a lot of
Yeah.
people's lives destroyed because it's legal. There's a lot of people that may not be psychologically capable of handling things. Maybe they already have, like, that's the thing about psychedelics. They do not ever recommend them for people that have a slippery grasp on reality as it is.
For sure.
People that are struggling, people that are already on a bunch of medications that allow them to just keep a steady state of existence in the normal world. If you just fucking bombard them with psilocybin, who knows what kind of an effect that's going to have, and whether or not they're psychologically too fragile to recover from that. I mean, there's many, many stories of people taking too much acid and never coming back.
Yeah. Yeah, these are like
Are there a
powerful
lot of
businesses
stories
to like
though?
begin to cover it.
Right. Yeah. But there's also, what is it about humans that are constantly looking to perturb their normal state of consciousness? Constantly, whether it's we're both drinking coffee, you know, people smoke cigarettes, they take Adderall, they do all sorts of different things to change and enhance their normal state of consciousness. It seems like whether it's meditation or yoga,
Yeah.
they're always doing something
Yeah.
to try to get out of their own way, or get in their own way, or distract themselves from the pain of existence. And it seems like a normal part of humans. And even monkeys, like vervet monkeys, get addicted to alcohol. They get addicted to fermented fruits and alcohol, and they become drunks and alcoholics. It's
What do you think is the deep lesson there?
well, we're not happy. Exactly. You know, and then some things can make you happy, sort of. For like a couple of drinks makes you so happy for a little bit, until you're an alcoholic, until you destroy your liver, until you crash your car, until you're involved in some sort of a violent encounter that you would never be involved with if you weren't drunk.
You know, I love caffeine, which clearly is a drug. Alcohol, like, I like, but I often am like, yeah, this is like,
Yeah.
you know, this is like dulling me, and I wish I hadn't had this drink.
Mm-hmm.
And then other stuff, like, I mostly would choose to avoid.
But that's because you're smart.
Um,
And you're probably aware of the pros and cons, and you're also probably aware of how it affects you and what's doing good for you and what is detrimental to you. But that's a decision that you can make as an informed human being that you're not allowed to make if everything's illegal.
right,
Yeah.
right.
And also, when things are illegal, criminals sell those things because you're not tampering the desire by making it illegal. You're just making access to it much more complicated.
What I was gonna say is, if fentanyl's really great, I don't want to know.
Apparently it is.
Apparently it is.
Yeah, Peter Berg was on the podcast, and he produced that painkiller documentary for Netflix
Yeah.
about the docudrama about the Sackler family. It's an amazing piece. But he said that he took OxyContin once recreationally. And he
And
was like, "Oh my God, it's amazing." He's like, "Keep this away from me. It feels so good."
yeah,
And that's part of the problem. Is that,
What's,
it will wreck your
Zaza?
life. Yeah, it will capture you.
but it's
if
just so unbelievable.
But the feeling, like, how did Lenny Bruce describe it? I think he described heroin as getting a warm hug from God. I think the feeling that it gives you is probably pretty spectacular. I don't know if legalizing that is going to solve the problems. But I
Yes,
do
I'm
know
not
that
sure
another
what that
problem that we're
means.
not paying attention to is the rise of the cartels, and the fact that right across our
Yeah.
border, where you can walk, there are these enormous organizations that make who knows how much money, untold, uncalculable amounts of money, selling drugs and bring them into this country. And one of the things they do is they put fentanyl in everything to make things stronger. And they do it for, like, street Xanax. There's people that have overdosed thinking they're getting Xanax, and they fucking die from
Whoa.
fentanyl. Yeah, they do it with cocaine, of course. They do it with everything. There's so many things that have fentanyl in them, and they're cut with fentanyl because fentanyl is cheap and insanely potent. And that wouldn't be a problem if things were legal.
So would you net out towards saying, all right, let's just legalize
Yeah,
it all?
I would net out towards that, but I would also put into place some serious mitigation efforts, like in terms of counseling, drug addiction, and ibogaine therapy, which is another thing that's illegal.
Someone was just telling me about how transformative this was for them.
Yeah, I haven't experienced that personally, but ibogaine for many of my friends that have had pill problems, and I have a friend, my friend Ed Clay, who started an ibogaine center in Mexico because he had an injury and he got hooked on pills and he couldn't kick it. Did ibogaine, gone.
One time done.
One time done.
Wow.
24 hours, super uncomfortable experience.
It's supposed to be a horrible experience, right?
Yeah, it's supposed to be not very recreational. Not exactly something you want to do on the weekend with friends. It's something you do because you're fucked and you need to figure out how to get out of this fuckedness. And that, like, we think about how much money is spent on rehabs in this country, and what's the relapse rate? It's really high. I mean, I have many friends that have been to rehab for drug and alcohol abuse, and quite a few of them went right back to it. It doesn't seem to be that effective. It seems to be effective to people when people have, like, they really hit rock bottom and they have a strong will, and then they get involved in a program, some sort of a 12-step program, some sort of a Narcotics Anonymous program, and then they get support from other people, and they eventually build this foundation of other types of behaviors and ways to find other things to focus on, to whatever aspect of their mind that allows them to be addicted to things. Now it's focused on exercise, meditation, yoga, whatever it is. That's your new addiction, and it's a much more positive and beneficial addiction. But the reality of the physical addiction, that there are mitigation efforts. Like, there's so many people that have taken psilocybin and completely quit drugs, completely quit cigarettes, completely quit a lot, because they realize, like, oh, this is what this is. This is why I'm doing this.
Yeah, that's why I was more optimistic that the world would have made faster progress towards acceptance of. You hear so many stories like this.
Mm-hmm.
So I would say, like, all right, clearly a lot of our existing mental health treatment at best doesn't work. Clearly our addiction programs are ineffective. If we have this thing that in every scientific study, or most scientific studies we can see, is delivering these, like, unbelievable results, it's gonna happen.
Yeah.
And I still am excited for it. I still think it'll be a transformatively positive development, but
It'll change politics. It'll absolutely change the way we think of other human beings. It'll absolutely change the way we think of society and culture as a whole. It'll absolutely change the way people interact with each other if it becomes legalized, and it's slowly becoming legalized. Like, think of marijuana, which is like, you know, the gateway drug. Marijuana is now legal recreationally in how many states? 23, and then medically in many more. And you know, it's really easy to get a license medically. In California, you used to just I got one in 1996. You used to be able to just go somewhere and go, I got a headache. That's it. Yeah, I get headaches. I'm in pain a lot. You know, I do a lot of martial arts. I'm always injured. I need some medication. I don't want to take the pain pills. Bam. You got a legal prescription for weed. I used to have to go to Inglewood to get it. I used to have to go to the hood, to the Inglewood Wellness Center. And I was like, this is crazy. Like, marijuana is now kind of sort of legal.
Yeah.
And then in 2016, it became legal in California, recreationally. And it just changed everything. I had all these people that were like right-wing people that were taking edibles to sleep. You know, I'm like, this is because now that it's legal, they thought about it in a different way. And I think that that drug, which is a fairly mild psychedelic, also has enhancing effects. It makes people more compassionate. It makes people more kind and friendly. It's sort of the opposite of a drug that enhances violence. It doesn't enhance violence at all. It does like alcohol does that. Cocaine does that.
To say a thing that'll make me very unpopular, I hate marijuana. It does not sit well with me at all.
What does it do to you that you don't like?
It makes me tired and slow for a long time after it.
Well, I think also there's biological variabilities, right? Like some people, like my wife, she does not do well with alcohol. She can get drunk off one drink. But it's biological.
Yeah.
Like she got some sort of a genetic I forget what it's called, something about bilirubin, like something that her body just doesn't process alcohol very well. So she's a cheap date.
Oh, all I meant is that genetically, I got whatever the mutation is that makes it an unpleasant experience.
Yeah, but what I was saying is, for me, that's the opposite. Alcohol doesn't bother me at all. Like I could drink 3-4 drinks and I'm sober in 20 minutes. And my body my liver just like a blast
Just goes
furnace,
through it.
just goes right through it. I can sober up real quick, but I also don't need it. Like, I'm doing Sober October like, for the whole month. I don't
Feels
drink.
good?
Yeah, did shows last night. Great, no problems. Not having alcohol doesn't seem to bother me at all. But I do like it. I do like a glass of wine.
It's a nice thing at the end of the day.
I like it.
Speaking of that and psychedelics in general, I you know, many cultures have had a place for some sort of psychedelic time in someone's life or rite of passage, but as far as I can tell, most of them are under. There's some sort of ritual about it, and I do worry that. And I think that these things are so powerful that I worry about them just being like kind of used all over the place all the time.
Yeah.
And I hope that we as a society, because I think this is not going to happen even if it's slow, find a way to treat this with the respect that it needs.
Yeah.
We'll see how that goes.
Agreed. Yeah. I think set and setting is very important. And thinking about what you're doing before you're doing it, why you're doing it. Like I was saying the other night when I had this psychedelic experience, I was just like, yeah, sometimes I just think too much about the world and that it's so fucked, and you have kids and you wonder like what kind of a world are they going to grow up in, and it was just one of those days where I was just like, God, there's so much anger and there's so much this and that, and then it's just it took it away from me. The rest of the day, like that night, I was so friendly and so happy, and I just wanted to hug everybody. I just really I got it. I go, oh my God, that's not thinking about it wrong.
Do you think the anger in the world is way higher than it used to be, or it's like all these dynamics from social media we were talking about?
I think the dynamics in social media have certainly exacerbated anger in some people, but I think anger in the world is just a part of frustration, inequality, problems that are so clear but are not solved, and all the issues that people have. I mean, it's not a coincidence that a lot of the mass violence that you're seeing in this country, mass looting and all these different things, are being done by poor people.
Do you think AGI will be an equalizing force for the world or further inequality?
I think it depends on how it's implemented. My concern is, again, what we were talking about before with some sort of a neural interface. that it will increase your ability to be productive to a point where you can control resources so much more than anyone else, and you will be able to advance your economic portfolio and your influence in the world through that, your amount of power that you can acquire. It will, before the other people can get involved, because I would imagine financially it'll be like cell phones. In the beginning, you remember when the movie Wall Street, when he had that big brick cell phone? I was like, look at him. He's out there on the beach with a phone. That was crazy. No one had one of those things back then. And they were so rare. I got one in 1994 when I first moved to California, and I thought I was living in the fucking
Giant
future.
thing.
No, it was a Motorola StarTAC.
That was a cool phone.
I actually had one in my car in 1988. I was one of the first people to get a cell phone. I got one in my car, and it was great because my friend Bill Blumenreich, who runs the Comedy Connection, he would call me because he knew he could get a hold of me. Like if someone got sick or fell out, I could get a gig because he could call me. So I was in my car. He's like, Joe, what are you doing? Do you have a spot tonight? And I'm like, no, I'm open. He's like, fantastic. And so he'd give me gigs. So I got a bunch of gigs through this phone where it kind of paid itself. But I got it just because it was cool. Like I could drive down the street and call people. Dude, I'm driving and I'm calling you. Like it was nuts. To be able to drive, and I had a little antenna, a little squirrely
with a little
pigtail antenna on my car, on the roof of the car. But now everyone has one. You know, you can go to a third world country, and you know, people in small villages have phones. It's super common. It's everywhere. Essentially, more people have phones than don't have phones. There's more phones than there are human beings, which is pretty fucking wild. And I think that initial cost problem, it's going to be prohibitively expensive initially. And the problem is the wealthy people are going to be able to do that.
Yeah.
And then the real crazy ones that wind up getting the holes drilled in their head. And if that stuff is effective, maybe it's not maybe there's problems with generation 1, but generation 2 is better. There's going to be a time where you have to enter into the game. There's going to be a time where you have to sell your stocks. Like, you know, don't wait too long. Hang on there. Go. And once that happens, my concern is that the people that have that will have such a massive advantage over everyone else that the gap between the haves and have-nots will be even further, and it'll be more polarized.
This is something I've changed my mind on. Someone at OpenAI said to me a few years ago, like, you really can't just let some people merge without a plan, because it could be such an incredible distortion of power, and that we're going to have some sort of societal discussion about this.
Yeah, that seems real. That
I
seems
think
like
so at this point.
Especially if it's as effective as AGI is, or as ChatGPT is. ChatGPT is so amazing. When you enter into it information, you ask it questions, and it can give you answers, and you can ask it to code a website for you, and it does it instantly, and it solves problems that literally you would have to take decades to try to solve, and it gets to it right away.
This is the dumbest it will ever be.
Yeah, that's what's crazy. That's what's crazy. So imagine something like that, but even more advanced, multiple stages of improvement and innovation forward, and then it interfaces directly with the mind, but it only does it with the people that can afford it.
Yeah.
And those people are just regular humans, so they haven't been enhanced. We haven't evolved physically. We still have all the human reward systems in place. We're still basically these territorial primates, and now we have, you know, you just imagine some fucking psychotic billionaire who now gets this implant and decides to just completely hijack our financial systems, acquire all the resources, set into place regulations and influences that only benefit them, and then make sure that they can control it from there on
How
out.
much do you think this actually, though, even requires, like, a physical
Yeah, exactly. Yo, exactly.
Just
Like,
some people have access to GPT-7 and can spend a lot on the inference compute for it.
yeah,
and
like the
it's
physical deal, like it doesn't, it's
I
not
think
even
that's going to be very transformative too.
wearable tech is
But
going to be the
my
future.
thought is that once, I mean, we have to think of what are the possibilities of a neural enhancement? If you think about the human mind and how the human mind interacts with the world, how
Oh
you
my
interact with language
god.
and thoughts and
This is
facts,
so cringe.
and something that is exponentially more powerful than that, but it also allows you to use the same emotions, the same ego, the same desires
What?
and drives, jealousy, lust, hate, anger, all of those things, but with this
Okay.
godlike power.
Right.
When one person can read minds and other people can't, when one person has a completely accurate forecast of all of the
You could
trends in
you could just
terms of
Google it.
stocks
Yeah.
and resources and
You could
commodities,
just
and they
Google
can
it.
make choices based on those.
I totally see all of that. The only thing I feel a little
What the
confused
fuck?
about is, human talking and listening bandwidth, or typing and reading bandwidth is not very high. But it's high enough where if you can just say, like, tell me everything that's going to happen in the stock market. If I want to go make all the money, what should I do right now? And it goes, and then just shows you on the screen. Even without a neural interface, you're kind of a lot of the way to the scenario you're describing.
Sure, with stocks.
Or with, like, tell me how to, like, invent some new technology that will change the course of history.
Yeah. Yeah. All those things.
Like, I think what somehow matters is access to massive amounts of computing power, especially, like, differentially massive amounts, maybe more than the interface itself.
I think that certainly is going to play a massive factor in the amount of power and influence a human being has, having access to that. My concern is that what neural interfaces are going to do is now you're not a human mind interacting with that data.
Oh my god.
Now you are
We are in
some
the weeds on this one.
massively advanced version of what a human mind is. And it has just
Like, what the
profound
fuck?
possibilities that we can't even
Like, lay off
imagine.
the science
We can
fiction.
imagine, but we can't
Yeah.
truly conceptualize them because we don't have the context. We
Creating,
don't have
like,
that
fucking
ability and that possibility currently.
Problems that
We could just
are so far away that it's
But
like,
when it does get implemented, that you're dealing with a completely different being.
yeah, let's try to focus on the here and now a little bit.
The only true thing I can say is I don't know.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Do you wonder why it's you? Do you ever think, like, how am I at the forefront of this spectacular change?
Well, first of all, I think it's very much like, I think this is, you could make the statement for many companies, but none is as true for as OpenAI is. Like, the CEO is far from the most important person in the company. Like, in our case, there's a large handful of researchers, each of which are individually more critical to the success we've had so far and that we will have in the future than me. But even that, and I bet those people, like, really are like, this is weird to be them. But it's certainly weird enough for me that it, like, ups my simulation hypothesis probability somewhat.
If you had to give a guess, when you think about the possibility of simulation theory, what kind of percentage do you?
I've never known how to put any number on it. Like, every argument that I've read written explaining why it's, like, super high probability, that all seems reasonable to me. It feels impossible to reason about, though. What about you?
Yeah, same thing. I go maybe, but it's still what it is, and I have to.
That's the main thing, is I think it doesn't matter. I think it's like okay.
It definitely matters, I guess, but there's not a way to know.
Does it though?
Also,
what matters though?
Exactly.
Well, if this really is, I mean, our inherent understanding of life is that we are these biological creatures that interact with other biological creatures. We mate and breed, and that this creates more of us, and that hopefully as society advances and we acquire more information, more understanding and knowledge, this next version of society will be superior to the version that preceded it, which is just how we look at society today. Nobody wants to live in 1860 where you died of a cold and there's no cure for infections. It's much better to be alive now. Like,
No
just
shit.
inarguably. Right? There's, unless you really do prefer the simple life that you see on Yellowstone or something, like, it's like what we're dealing with now in term. First of all, access to information, the lack of ignorance. If you choose to seek out information, you have so much more access to it now than ever before.
That's so cool.
And over time, like if you go back to the beginning of written history to now, one of the things that is clearly evident is the more access to information, the better choices people can make. They don't always make better choices, but they certainly have much more of a potential to make better choices with more access to information. You know, we think that this is just this biological thing, but imagine if that's not what's going on. Imagine if this is a program.
Imagine.
You are just consciousness that's connected to this thing that's creating this experience that is indistinguishable from what we like to think of as a real biological experience from carbon-based life forms.
Okay,
and
and
solid physical things.
And
It's still unclear to me what I'm supposed to do differently or think.
Yeah,
exactly.
No yeah, you're 100% right. What can you do?
Such a fucking cringe comment.
If you exist as if it's a simulation, if you just live your life as if it's a simulation.
Like it's a cringe question.
I don't know if that's the solution.
And it's like we've been talking in circles for the past fucking 45 minutes.
It's real. Yeah.
I'll live it that way.
And that will be the problem with an actual simulation if and when it does get implemented.
Yeah.
If we do create
Oh
an
my
actual
god.
simulation that's indistinguishable from real life, like what are the rules of the simulation? How does it work?
He's in a fucking thought loop.
Fair and equitable
100%.
and much more reasonable and peaceful. Is there no war in that simulation? Should we all agree to hook up to it because we'll have a completely different experience in life, and all the angst of crime and violence and the things that we truly are terrified of, there will be non-existent in this simulation. Yeah, I mean, if we keep going, it seems like if you just extrapolate from where VR is now. Did you see the podcast that Lex Friedman did with Mark Zuckerberg?
I saw some clips, but I haven't got to watch all.
Bizarre, right? So they're essentially using like very realistic physical avatars in the metaverse. Like that's step one. That's Pong.
Maybe that's step 3.
Yeah.
Maybe it's a little beyond Pong.
Maybe it's Atari.
Yeah.
Maybe you're playing Space Invaders now. But whatever it is, it's on the path to this thing that will be indistinguishable. That seems inevitable. Those two things seem inevitable to me. The inevitable thing to me is that we will create a life form that is
Alright, I'm changing
artificial,
this. This is getting
intelligent
cringe.
life form that's far more advanced than us, and once it becomes sentient, it will be able to create a far better version of itself. And then as it has better versions of itself,
I mean, at least ask real fucking questions. I mean,
if
come
it
on.
keeps going, it will reach godlike capabilities. The complete understanding of every aspect of the universe and the structure of it itself. How to manipulate it, how to travel through it, how to communicate. And that, if we keep going, if we survive 100 years, 1,000 years,
Come on.
10,000 years, and we're still on this same technological exponential
We're still on the same fucking imagine question.
That's God.
Wow.
We become something like God. And that might be what
God.
That might be what intelligent, curious, innovative life actually does. It creates something that...
Alright, shut the fuck up. I can't take that anymore. Could not take it anymore.
Chances are, if you play old school RuneScape, you probably use RuneLite, and if not, you've definitely heard of it, as about 70% of players online right now are on RuneLite. Now, as a Twitch
Jinkies.
streamer, I get asked every single day, Mammal, how do you set that plugin up? How do you get your RuneLite to look like this? And I figured, if I'm getting asked these questions on stream every single day, chances are, there probably are people that could benefit from this information on YouTube as well, so I'm gonna make a video. Now, first and foremost, there are a lot of fake RuneLite links if you just Google RuneLite, so I am going to put a link to the RuneLite website in the description of the video. In the event that you don't have RuneLite already, it is runelite.net. Please be very careful because people get hacked like this all the time. So the first thing I want to talk about technically doesn't have to do with RuneLite specifically, but I think that this is really underknown at this point, and it's a shame. And that is the Jagex launcher. Now, I'm not being like paid by Jagex. I just think this is really, really cool. So with the Jagex launcher, you can one-click log in the same way that you do on mobile. If you played Osrs mobile before, you would know all you gotta do is tap play now. Well, with the Jagex launcher, you can do the same thing and use RuneLite. One click, play now, you're in the game. Once again, I will put a link in the description to the Jagex launcher download. It's on the jagex.com website. Once you've downloaded the Jagex launcher, you can actually use either RuneScape 3 or old school RuneScape. From there, you're going to click on Manage Accounts, and you can add every single one of your accounts by logging in. Once you've done that, it's going to show a list of all of your accounts, and then you're just going to click on RuneLite or official client if you want, but obviously I'm using RuneLite, and then you click on play, and it will launch
Imagine
a
not
client.
using RuneLite.
Once that client has finished launching, that's it. You're done. All you gotta do is click log in. No need to type your password again. It's a game changer. Now, some of these features I tell you about, in fact, a lot of them are going to be on the plugin hub. I wanted to quickly explain, the plugin hub contains tons and tons of plugins that are not default to RuneLite. They were created by players. Now, RuneLite verifies that everything on the plugin hub is safe to use. Like, you're not going to get hacked, you're not going to get banned from the game by using it. However, the only thing they don't verify is it could cause, like, instability, could cause your client to crash, maybe, or something. But all of these are totally within the rules. Now, in order to get to the plugin hub, you're going to click on this little... I guess it's a plugin, isn't it? You're going to click on this button in the top right-hand corner of RuneLite, and from there, you can type in whatever it is you want and find it. So, if I say it's on the plugin hub, just click on this tab right here and then type it in. If it's not on the plugin hub, then it'll be under this wrench icon under the default plugins. The first plugin I want to show you, and probably the one I get asked about the most, is bank tag layouts. To set up bank tag layouts, you're going to find it in the plugin hub, and from there, open up the settings, and really the only important thing you need is on this section that says auto layout. You want to set your auto layout style to presets. Zigzag will not do what I'm going to show you. You want it to say presets. Once you've done that, you're going to open up your bank, and in the top left-hand corner of your bank, you're going to see a plus. It says New Tag tab. So for the purpose of this, we'll just call it Slayer, okay? And when you make a tab, it'll appear at the bottom of this list on the left-hand side of your bank. So with this little spade icon, this is the tab that I just created. Once you've done that, you're going to click on these two white arrows, Preview Auto Layout, click on the green check, and there you go. You just made a bank tab, and it's got your gear and your inventory laid out exactly as they are, separated, really easy to work with and take out. I think this next one is really underknown and will be helpful for a lot of people. So on the plugin hub, there is a plugin called Tile Packs. Once you've installed Tile Packs, you're going to see an icon on the far right-hand side of your RuneLite. Open that up, and you are going to see a massive list of bosses. Tile markers are used in a lot of ways to help make bossing easier. Now, if you ever watched a YouTube guide that, uses tile markers, I know when I used to watch guides, I'd be squinting, trying to copy what tiles they have marked. With the Tile Packs plugin, you don't need that. You don't have to do that anymore. So if I'm at Bandos right now, and I wanted to do the 6-0 range method with a crossbow, there's a little thing that says General Grardor 605 tick. Click on the plus, and looky there. All of your tile markers just got imported. No need to try and copy them from a guide, and there are so many bosses listed here. Tile packs is a big one if you're getting into PVMing and you need help getting your tiles marked. Have you ever scouted a raid and a bunch of the rooms are unknown? Well, you can fix that. This next one is called Raid Reloader. It's located on the plugin hub, and once you add Raid Reloader, on the far right side of RuneLite, you're going to see a little refresh arrow. Click on that, and all you're going to get is a reload raid button. So do you see how it says Tecton and the rest unknown? If I stand on the correct tile and click Reload Raid, it should now tell me what everything is. Yep, there you go. Now, here's the tricky part, okay? The Raid Reloader only works on certain raids, and you have to be standing in the correct spot. So if the room, the lobby, looks like this, you need to stand on this tile right here, right behind this big purple flower. And then the other reloadable layout is this one. If your lobby looks like this, where it's nice and long, you need to stand right here, as far north as you can go next to the entrance of the raid. Click on reload, and it should work. Again, there's a few layouts with some unknowns that you're not going to be able to reload, but as long as you stand in that right spot most of the time, the reloader will work. Be careful though, sometimes this one will disconnect you. You'll click on reload, and then it'll just log you out of the game. I don't know why it happens, but just be aware that it does sometimes. So this next one is pretty advanced, and I'm just going to show you an example of how I used it at Commander Zilyana. It's called Custom Menu Swaps, and it's located on the plugin hub. Now, I think you could probably do some pretty crazy stuff with this. I can't take credit for it. My chat told me how to do this, so all I can do is pass forward this example. So, if under custom swaps, what I have copy and pasted here, it's attack, comma, Commander Zilyana, and then asterisk, comma, attack, comma, Starlight, asterisk. I would assume you could swap Commander Zilyana and Starlight with any other NPCs in the game you wanted to, and it should work the same way. But what this will do, this will make it so that I will always have left-click priority on Zilyana. Commander Zilyana and Starlight will frequently stack on top of each other, and what you would normally have to do is right-click and then click attack on Zilyana. But with this custom swap, I am always able to left-click Zilyana. It'll always take priority. And again, I would assume you could swap out any NPC in place of those two, and it should work the same. Right, so let's show it in live action. As you can see, even though Starlight is standing on top of Zilyana, I can still left-click, and it'll always shoot Zilyana. I'll have to wait a moment for them to get realigned so I can show you again. Like I said, under normal circumstances, you would have to go right-click, left-click, attack Zilyana, but I will always be able to left-click, and it'll always hit Zilyana. I'll even try to click on Starlight. Like, I'm going to go out of my way to click on the unicorn, and it's just not going to matter. It's always going to left-click on Zilyana. I would consider the next plugin a must-have for a lot of PVM in this game, and that is NPC Indicators. NPC Indicators is a default RuneLite plugin, and there's a lot of different settings to play with here, but I think the most important thing is having the tile highlighted. If you have the tile highlighted, that can be very vital information for a lot of bosses, such as the Corrupted Hunlef. It's really important to know exactly what tiles the Hunlef is occupying, because now I know where I can safely run. Otherwise, you could risk running underneath it and getting stomped. Now, this can apply to a lot of bosses and a lot of activities. The Hunlef is just an easy and clear example to show you. But NPC Indicators isn't just useful for bossing, you could also use it for Slayer. So if I'm doing, let's say, a Gargoyle Slayer task right now, what you could do is you can highlight these gargoyles and check a box that says Show Respawn Timer. If you have that box checked, whenever you kill a monster, it is going to show exactly where it's going to respawn and when. So now that I just killed that gargoyle, you can see the tiles it's going to spawn on, and there's a little timer in the middle showing exactly when it's going to spawn. This can be useful information to know if you should move on to a different monster, or if you could just wait for the one next to you to respawn. This next one is massive quality of life, and it is called Logout Timer. Logout Timer is a default RuneLite plugin, and if you open up the settings, you can change your idle timeout to up to 25 minutes. That means you can do absolutely nothing in AFK for 25 minutes before being logged out. The only problem is the number doesn't go higher than 25 minutes, sadly. So this one actually isn't a plugin, but I think it's great general RuneLite knowledge to have. If you didn't know, you can reorder what the left-click option of an item in your inventory is. So right now, obviously the left-click option for these bracelets is wear. However, if I wanted to dismantle a bunch of these bracelets, I'd have to right-click, dismantle, and then hit yes. Well, there's a faster way that I can do it, and this is a good way to show you how useful this can be. So if you hold down the shift key and right-click an item in your inventory...
Yeah, I pretty much know the rest of this.
Hello everyone, Chaos here, and welcome to another old school RuneScape video. If you've been on the channel for some time now, you might remember a few of my AFK guides, which are over a year old at this point. And with more and more great content coming to old school RuneScape, I thought it might be the perfect time to make an updated guide for all of the great AFK methods you can do in the game that need this amazing spell. Because there's no true way to AFK rune crafting and construction, we jump straight to agility, and just like prayer, we will be AFKing this skill by not training agility at all. As we all know, barbarian fishing offers strength and agility experience along with, well, fishing experience. And some people opt to get 99 fishing before starting the agility grind to get some of the early levels out of the way. Be advised that this is going to be incredibly slow, but it's your best AFK alternative. Herbler is pretty cool because we have certain potions that can be made out of a 4-dose potion and stackable ingredients in your inventory, leading to 27 items to be processed per cycle. These potions include Stamina, Extended Anti-Fire, Anti-Venom, Forgotten Brew, and Extended Super Anti-Fire potions. Make sure to see what the best option for your budget is, but I personally recommend sticking to Staminas and Anti-Venoms for the best.
I didn't really talk about this. I don't know why. But Elon Musk has actually been streaming Diablo 4 on Twitter. No, I'm not going to call it X. It's fucking Twitter. So he's been streaming Diablo 4 on Twitter. And I thought to myself, this actually makes sense. Because I told everybody with Diablo 4 that Diablo 4 is made for guys that have 10 jobs, 10 kids, and 3 wives, right? He's actually the target audience.
See that sound normal? Sound like a chipmunk.
Wait. Bro. Elon Musk has my chair. No fucking way. Are you kidding me? Same attic too? He's in an attic? Okay.
Yeah, don't try reading the comments. I'm definitely gonna die reading the comments.
And this stream got 8.7 million views.
Let's see if comments keep working.
Not bad. Not bad.
He's level 100 on his druid, holy shit.
Yeah, I got the mood lighting, I got the candles going on. Gonna go to have the candles for, you know, Diablo dungeons.
Yeah, I mean, he played the game for 40 minutes, which is probably like the allotted amount of time that, you know, the average Diablo player plays Diablo every week. He plays for 47 minutes a week. Yeah, that's all the free time.
Hey, happy Friday night, everyone.
I think those are
welcome to streaming test
I
3.
don't know.
What we're aiming for here is that the audio sounds normal. This image looks reasonably good, so it's not flickering, and the comments are working. I think all 3 of those are good. So I'm not. I don't sound like a chipmunk on helium, and the stream looks okay, room for improvement, and the comments are not crashing. we might have a good. It seems like it's good progress. Great. Yeah. Okay. Cool. Nice.
Greetings.
Oh, let's see. I'll just.
Imagine stream sniping Elon Musk. Like, that's fucking insane whenever you think about that. Oh my god.
Hello.
Greet this random person. Emily 80.
Christ.
So like this is like the biggest ad for Diablo ever. So great game. But listen, I gotta use something for streaming. Can't just stream nothing. So
Yeah.
and
Jesus. 4,000 iron chunks? Holy shit.
like once again I have to applaud the
Bro, this
game
guy
makers
quits rocks.
at Blizzard for making a great game. What I'm playing right now is the regular season. There are two sort of add-ons, I guess. Season 1, which is about to end, Season 2, which is starting. This is what they call the Eternal Realm.
So he is unironically one of the people that Blizzard left behind. Yep, there you go. He's playing on the Eternal Realm. Wow. The standard
And
player,
just to give people a little bit of background who don't know, have never seen this game before. There's 4 world.
Oh god, bro, I cannot fucking wait to hear him explain this shit. All right, here we go.
Tiers. So there's sort of like there's like a basic, a
Yeah.
veteran.
Yeah.
Veteran is level 2, Nightmare is level 3, and then Torment, which is beyond level 3, is level 4. So we're in World Tier 4 here, which is Torment, which is a level beyond Nightmare.
Yeah.
Then within Torment, there are Nightmare dungeons. The Nightmare dungeons range from 1 to 100, and we're gonna play a Tier 100 dungeon. So this is the hardest dungeon in the hardest level of Diablo, and death is common here. So although my name is
I will never die.
I will never die.
Yeah.
This is I say this in irony because actually I die a lot. And my title is Rampaging Goat because rampaging goats are pretty scary. And yeah, so for those who play a little bit of Diablo, I'll tell you about the build and what I'm aiming for here. So you can see my basically.
Fuck.
It's okay.
My gear.
It's decent.
This is a game that is like really. If you love math and statistics, you'll love you'll love Diablo. It is math and statistics next level.
Man,
You have
yeah,
all these
Elon needs to play
attributes
PoE.
for each,
Holy shit.
bit of gear. So on my helm, I've got an increase in life. I get a bit more life when I kill something. I have an armor gain. I get a damage reduction when shapeshifted into a werewolf. I get more damage reduction. At the highest levels, you need a massive amount of damage reduction and armor, or you're just gonna get instantly killed by a tiny skeleton.
Right.
So,
But armor doesn't really
unless
do
you're
much.
armored like a battleship, you just instantly die on tier 100 dungeons.
Oh my
So
god.
this really, pretty much everything is aimed at maximum armor, maximum damage reduction.
Damage reductions. So,
This
oh
is,
man, somebody
this
to tell
is
me.
Emily 80 saying, well,
He's trying to invite
Emily 80, I'm gonna do a tier 100 Nightmare dungeon. So if you want to come along for that, you're welcome
Oh my
to do that.
fucking god.
I'll just accept that.
Oh god. Here we go.
You want to give me money? Okay, sure.
He's a natural streamer.
Huh.
Oh my god. 200.
You really do have 200 million gold? I think that's like What can I give you? I don't really have anything. I don't know if you can even use my stuff.
Just give him 200. Wait, what are you gonna give him?
I can give you.
Oh, those are
How
good.
about
Those
this
are the
really
good ones.
nice potion?
Oh, those are the good ones.
So this is a really
Elixir of
really nice
Fortitude.
potion.
You guys can't see, but it's 200 million
you go.
gold. You just traded them.
Okay.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Oh my god. The rich get richer. Isn't that fucked up, guys? Yo,
Thanks
isn't
for
that
giving me
fucked
crazy
up?
money.
Come with me.
Okay. Well, do you want to? I was gonna do like an intense dungeon,
Oh my
but
god.
I kind of want to. I kind of need to explain my gear a little bit to people for what it's worth if they're playing Diablo. So, anyway, I'll just go quickly through my gear. The game designers clearly love something called Critical Strike, which is like a special strike. So,
Yeah.
I'm amping up Critical Strike chance here. The stats are necessary to activate certain attributes in the Paragon board, which you'll
Emily
see
is
Paragon
Amber
boards
Heard.
are wild. Then more damage reduction, more armor. Basic skills grant 20% damage reduction. Hurricane is plus 4 rank, so that's what matters, just having Hurricane at all. Then I got movement speed, just so I'm not moving slow.
Wait, there's open mic. I didn't even realize that. Oh my god. Yeah, it's open mic. Okay, so basically, I think that like for a first stream, cause like you remember, I mean, this has come a long way. Do you remember the Ron DeSantis announcing that he's running for president stream? Remember that one? That wasn't very good, was it? That was a pretty bad one. And so this is and that was only 200,000 people watching this. Or watching that one. Now there's like 900,000 that watched this one. And it was way fucking better. Now, obviously, I think the quality still kind of sucks. This is probably like a 4 or like a 5, maybe 6K bitrate. I think also, to be fair, like what I think also sucks is Elon Musk's webcam, I think just sucks. It's kind of surprising, you know, given the circumstances, but yeah, it pretty much sucks. And that's also probably just I think with this webcam rather than the actual stream. I think if they want to make streaming work on X, if you want to make streaming work on X, what you need to do is you need to have a chat replay. Sorry, I didn't mean X, I meant Twitter. If you want to make streaming work on Twitter, you need to have a live chat replay. Even YouTube has this now. And like, I feel like you have to have like a separate UI for it or something, right? Or at least like if you maximize this, there's like a second button that will open up like extra UI functions for it being like an actual video, where like you can see a chat room, comments, maybe likes, stuff like that, a theater mode, yeah, something like that. Because like this is actually, I mean, to be fair, it's kind of hard to have like what, 900,000 people all watching something at the same time. Like that's pretty fucking impressive. Most websites can't handle that. So this is a pretty big improvement, especially after the Ron DeSantis thing. And keep in mind, the Ron DeSantis thing, that wasn't even a video. That was an audio event. It was crazy. Let's see how the gameplay and the combat is. Okay, it's just going through his talents. Yeah, he's still with Emily? Yeah, he's just with this random guy. I like how they just invited this random dipshit in there. And he's just dying to literally everything. And he's just respawning him. It's like, whatever.
So you can see the poison creeper is resetting a lot. And if you want a game that really illustrates the importance of compound interest, that corpse bow is gonna kill me.
He rezzed him? Holy shit. God damn.
I'm gonna bounce around a lot.
Oh, this is one of those builds that just like relies on like an overpower to kill something. Oh god. Typical druid build. Yeah. Not hard to guess his class. Yeah, true. Okay, let me go to the end of it. Oh, he had to rest his had to rest his dipshit again.
I'm in Austin right now.
Oh my god.
So yeah, so this is pretty
Yeah, I
cool.
think Elon Musk lives in Austin, I'm pretty sure.
So now you know what is what I this is like frankly this is actually my main recreation.
Emily never left, yeah.
Playing video games. And playing with my kids and playing with video games. And you know, at times I've been able to play video games with my kids, so get you know people at the same time.
Min-maxing.
With my older boys, I used to play Diablo. I should say Mass Effect 3, the multiplayer of Mass Effect 3, which is really quite a fun co-op multiplayer. So, and yeah, so yeah, I'm gonna like try to answer some questions that I see in the comments. It's cool to see that the comments are still going, and we're able to keep the stream working at high volume. So yeah, and you know, we'll add X streaming for
Yeah, if he's still getting chat and nothing is crashing, especially like 30 minutes into it, right? Because like at that point, you're probably gonna have like the highest amount of people that are watching. I think that's actually pretty impressive. Same chair? Yes, unironically has the same chair. And so yeah, I mean, I would probably, if they had a actual theater mode, I would try a stream on Twitter. Sure, why the fuck not? Yeah, to be funny. Twitter streaming could be lit. Yeah, why not? Chat would be insufferable? Oh, well that's so much different than now. I mean, come on, yeah, you would have to have, like, for example, people, you know, some rules and, like, ways to like moderate stuff like that. But overall, yeah, I think this is a pretty good fucking first test. This is pretty decent, man. Interview Elon Musk about Diablo 4. Yeah, that'd be great. It has the potential to overthrow Twitch. I
Good
don't
luck.
think so. I just don't really think so. I think they'd have to build like a whole separate environment. No, I don't think so. It's
I mean, if Kit can't even overthrow Twitch, then I mean, I don't know about Twitter.
the third test. Yeah. Yeah, this is the third time he's done a stream on here. So we'll see how things evolve. But yeah, the quality, I think the worst thing about Twitch, for example, is just like the bitrate and the quality of the game. If there was higher quality, then it would be even better. Or people are going to do X streams. Yeah, and then after the stream's over, it'll be an X video. Twitch also has no playback. Yeah, the playback on it's
That'll be an
actually
X
crazy.
video.
That's a very good point. It's
That's
actually
fucking
crazy to
funny.
me that that the playback on the Twitter video of a stream is already better than Twitch. Isn't that weird? Dude, isn't that like, what? How does it happen? Yeah, it's a VOD. VODs have playback though? Yeah, but like how many times have you tried to do playback for a VOD and it's had to completely reload? Or it's like paused or it's crashed or something like that. Like I've had this happen a lot. Elon follows Asma? No, he doesn't. He does not follow me. Probably does not know that I exist. I'll watch the end of it and then we'll talk about it a bit more.
Gotta be handy to steal if you know what I mean.
Playing a song called Regulate by Warren G. Regulators!
She's just listening to whatever the fuck. Let me see.
But I think it's been a successful night. I hope this was entertaining and respect out there to gamers. I don't know, I think it's awesome. So,
That's it? Well, shit, okay. Yeah, I think that was actually pretty good. I'm impressed. Yeah, I mean, this is better than what I would have expected. Especially coming from the, again, the Ron DeSantis announcement was a fucking disaster. It was such a joke. It was like, I still think back on that and how fucking stupid it was. Marcus Brownlee uploaded his recent video to Twitter and YouTube, and Twitter got more interaction. Elon will launch alternative probably. Let me go ahead and pull that up. Okay, so we've got this one. And then 85,000 likes on this. 50,000 likes on this. 36 million views on this. Only 1.5 million views on this. However, a view on a YouTube video means more than a view on Twitter. Like, for example, you can look at Tucker Carlson, right? Like, look at the amount of people that watch his stuff. So this is 37 million views right here. We'll go back, scroll down a bit more. And the O'Reilly interview, oh my God, I forgot all about this guy. We'll do it live. So yeah, a lot of these have pretty much similar viewership, etc. And this one is fucking nuts. Like, some of these are huge. Like, this one was really popular. This got 421 million views. So, like, O'Reilly's still alive? Yeah, he's chilling, man. And anyway, a view, like, I just counted as a view for that stream. And, like, every single one of these tweets, right? I'm pretty sure. Because, like, they just count a view as an impression. Like, here, let me explain it. All views are impressions, but all impressions are not views. Does that make sense? So basically, with Twitter, if you just simply look at something, that counts as a view. But it's not really a view, it's just an impression. But with YouTube, a view is somebody who is actively engaging with and watching the video for a period of time. So it's very different. So what I'm saying is like a view on, let's say YouTube means more than a view on a 1-to-1 ratio on Twitter. So let's go ahead and look at this. 2 million views, and so it's gotten how many comments? 1,400, and then this one has 7,600. So I think it's really just about like quantifying how accurate this number is, because like it's clearly not accurate 1-to-1, right? But like how close to accurate is it? And that's what I'm curious about. Twitter also autoplays, yeah. Elon Musk boosted the video. Well, I'm sure, I mean, like, I've seen many tweets that have a lot of views. What I'm saying, right? 2 to 5%. Well, if it's 5%, let's say it's 5%. 5% means it had 3 million views. Or sorry, 1.5 million views. A little bit more than that. So it's about the same. So yeah, I'll be really curious to see how many people are actually, and the reason why people are going to upload onto like X and stuff like that is just simply because it might just look better for analytics. And the reason why they upload onto YouTube right now is because they make more money from it. Actually, I'm going to go back and forth. And I think if Twitter can provide the same level of value that YouTube is, then you'll see a lot more people uploading onto it and making videos on there. And the reason why is because you're not going to get banned on Twitter. You can post all kinds of crazy shit on Twitter and you never get banned for it. Whereas on YouTube, sometimes a video gets demonetized, sometimes it gets claimed, sometimes it gets taken down, sometimes it gets age restricted, and like there's all these restrictions. There's no ads though? Well, for now though. For now. Like the thing is that advertisers will come back to Twitter if they feel like they can advertise their products. It's just that simple. Like, I know people want to say, oh, advertisers aren't going to do it. They will always come back. What the fuck? Do you think they really care about these problems? Of course not. They're just trying to play it safe and not look bad. That's it. So as soon as they start making enough money off of it, then they'll do it. I got perma on X for saying kill yourself to someone. Yeah, but like that's kind of normal though, right? I mean, I think that in general, it's harder to get banned. I mean, like you get banned on Twitch for that too though. Like, pretty much anything that you get banned on Twitch for, you would also get banned on Twitter for. Imagine having your ad on Elon Musk's stream. Yeah, exactly. Would you try a different platform to stream just because? Yeah, I would try to stream on Twitter. I think it'd be funny. But yeah, I think the biggest thing that's holding back Twitter from having better streams is a actual theater function that shows chat and everything else. Like it shows chat, it has like moderation tools. Basically just take what Twitch has and just steal it. Just steal it. Just take the exact same thing and put it on.
True though.
There it is. They don't have a chat. They don't have a chat, sorry. They do have a chat. They don't have a chat replay. Like for example, like you need to have a chat replay and the ability for people to make clips. Like for example, I think it's actually, so I see substantially less stuff from like Tucker Carlson nowadays than whenever he was on Fox, because it's not easy to clip this kind of stuff. Like for example, if you were able to just clip this and then talk about it, like on a 1-to-1 ratio, it would be a lot easier for information to be spread on Twitter. Because that's the main weakness that a lot, why was it deleted? I don't know.
Time to take a break.